We are gonna go ahead and find our. Alright, welcome everyone. Tonight is a workshop meeting for the 2022 budget for the town of Pittsfield. Today is November 9th. We're meeting in town council chambers. If we could open the meeting please with a pledge of allegiance and then followed by a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Budget process 2022. We're going to start with the fire department, and then we'll move on to water sewer, and we're going to do police department last, because that's going to be the longest discussion for the night.
Heather, can you speak up a little, please?
Sure. We're going to start with the fire department, and then we'll go to water sewer, and then we'll go to the police department and animal control. So, fire department. Everybody should have, the counselors should have their 2020 budget books available to them. And there should be copies of the budgets on the table for anybody interested in those that's here with us this evening. There are copies of the full budget available at the town office for anybody that would like them.
What page is the fire department one on?
Yes, the fire department's on page 24, and I put a handout on everyone's desk for the town councilors that had just the budgets in it and what we were going to discuss tonight, because that would make it easier for you than using a large book. So on your desk, attached to the agenda, is a little packet that has all your budgets in it.
It's also page 10 in section 4, the breakout.
Page 24 on section 6.
Right, yeah.
So on page 24, the fire department comes in at $93,450. It's an increase of $2,933 or 3.2%.
Bernard, do you want to start us off, or do you want questions from counselors?
Of course, one of the big increases in that workers' comp, that's the biggest slice of that increase, like $1,300. We have absolutely no control over. And the only other place we increased it, and with a little, of course, FICA went up some, but we moved some money around from part-time to emergency management, so we can kind of track how much that's costing us versus everything going into the fire department.
Bernard, the part-time, you mentioned just now that you moved some of the funds into EMA to track that better.
Well, we took 1,000 off from last year off that, and then we thought we put a little more with it because EMA has become a little busier than it used to be. And based on some stuff that came out of FEMA this afternoon, looks like there's going to be some grants out there we may be able to go after. So.
Okay. So you'll keep an eye out for that. I had a question about the part-time pay for the firefighters. I know we've had some adjustments to minimum wage in the past couple years, and I'm wondering what our pay is now for the firefighters. Is it still hovering right around minimum wage for their training hours, or?
It's for somebody coming on, it is just new coming on, it is minimum wage. And as they get more training, it goes up. And we've increased the wages, like for a guy who goes through the structural school, instead of the, what is it, 12.15 or whatever it is now, the minimum wage, they get $13 an hour. And you go through firefighter 1 and 2, you get $13.50, and It's not a huge increase, but it's some.
Yeah. Is that comparable to most departments? that
I
have
understand
all this?
Burnham just put in last year, pays everybody $15 across the board, period. We went with the tiered one simply because it gives the guy the, a little motivation to maybe to go to that $300 school to get his firefighter 1 and 2 versus, the 12, 15 an hour that you get, or the 13 that you. It's up a little more than that because of the raise last year, but that's where we started with 13.50, and I think it's like 13.65 now in that area for firefighter 1 and 2.
Will you
Does
be
the town-
increasing that again with the new minimum wage increase? Because in January, I know the minimum wage
So the
was
12,
$12.75, I think, or something like
Is it
12.
though?
It's either $12.25 or $12.75.
well, I thought it was 12.50, I thought it went up another, but whatever, yeah, it's going up, and
You'll
we'll-
increase across the board.
across the board, whatever that is.
I think it's tied to, COLA now. It's like tied to a percentage. It's not a flat.
Well, they haven't released that number, and no, I can't remember what it was.
What Social Security is supposed to go up, what, 5.9% or some such thing as that? and Whatever it goes to, we'll increase up the line accordingly.
So it'll be 12.75. You're right.
So it's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
2022 will be
For
12.75.
2022.
Yeah.
So does that impact this, or was that already included in it?
Unless, well, it wasn't because I had no idea what it was. We have lived within that budget, same amount of money for a whole bunch of years, and we will continue to try. If we get a lot of big fires, we may be in trouble, but fortunately, we have had, a lot of calls, but they've been short calls, 1 and 2 hours or 3 hours. We haven't had the, 7, 8, 9 hour one that we've had. A year ago in November, we were up for 24 hours straight in that snowstorm. With several crews out trying to keep the roads open so the plows could plow. And, we ate a pretty good hunk, but based on history, we can live within that.
Okay.
So, Bernard, I know you touched upon it, and my apologies for not paying attention when you did EMA. Could you just briefly explain what
Well,
that is again?
before,
Why that
the
increase?
EMA has always just been part of the fire department budget. And last year, we opted to, for this year's budget, to put some money in there and actually take EMA cost as an EMA cost and not just part of the fire department.
So what is EMA though?
Emergency management.
So what does that cost? I mean, what do we get for that? I don't understand what that is.
Well, the town has to have an emergency action plan, which has to be renewed every 2 years, based on the counties, and the counties is based on the state, and they all have to be approved at state level. We can opt to do things a couple of different ways for local emergency preparedness committee, which is required by the state. We have opted in Somerset County because it requires a whole bunch of people to do that, to do it as a county rather than, and most counties in Maine have done that. It takes 15 to 20 people to do that committee and get the things done that need to be done. We have a meeting we're required to have at least 4 meetings a year, plus all the stuff we have to do to submit to the state. You know how the state works, they want a report in 15 minutes, but you don't get an answer from them for 3 months when you call them for something.
So that is a fee for a service provided by the county or the
That's
state?
fee to pay for me to go to meetings, to do the work.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, we just got our plan approved after it's set at the state for 9 months. They just sent it back to us
So is that a state mandate or a county mandate or both?
to have emergency
For the EMA,
management.
is that a state?
That's a state, yeah.
Requirement, okay.
Yeah, every town is like they're supposed to have a fire chief, or they have a fire department and
Right,
all, they're
yep,
supposed to have an emergency management, correct?
All right. So that $2,500 increase that was imposed by the state?
Well,
is that
no.
You
But we pulled $1,000.
put the money into it
Yeah.
from the, you said you normally keep that in the
Up in there.
part-time?
Right.
Okay. All right. So essentially, there was no increase in that, it was just a change by you?
Well, it was a slight, yeah, there was some increase in it, because I kind of kept track of it last year, as how much they would have paid if I had billed it as separate versus, so we had
So
some
that-
idea where we needed to go.
So that 2,500 that you increased includes the increase we had to absorb plus what you wanted to put into there
Right,
from the
well,
other
right.
line item, okay. All right, thanks, Bert, I'm all set.
Bernard, the mandatory training, line 50525, is that department-wide, or is that reimbursing firefighters for taking those extra classes, the firefighter one,
Both,
both?
yeah. See, we have, because of the water and sewer, we have to maintain a confined space team. That requires an 8-hour refresher, give or take an hour or two every year. We get a bunch of new people, we got to put on a 16-hour course to bring them up to speed. Because of the hazmat we have coming through this area, we have to do a hazmat refresher every year. You have to do that anyway by state, by BLS regulations. You don't have to do it at the, let me say this carefully now before I get in trouble. BLS has pushed that every firefighter be at the operations level. And we have been at that, we were at that prior to them basically mandating that. BLS has one of the outfits that they can sit down there in Augusta and write something on a piece of paper. It is not a law. It's an administrative rule, and they can come in and fine you for not following it. So it's one of those deals where, yeah, it's not the law, but if you don't follow it, it's going to cost you money. And I don't know what they would do. I know what they have threatened to do. They threatened to shut fire departments down if they didn't pay the fine. And I got an idea that probably nobody in Augusta's got the stomach for that.
Yeah, who's putting their name on that paper?
Yeah, yeah. Who's going to sign that piece of paper? I'm not thinking that most people down there would do that. But, and again, you know, that's so, we were at the operations level prior to that. We've got 2, 3 technicians, and we've got some guys that may go do the technician. And the thing that really is interesting is that according to NFPA, we are not an NFPA state, but BLS likes to follow their rules because they're complicated. NFPA says it takes 300 and some odd hours to become a technician as a firefighter. You go to work over to SAFE, in 40 hours you become a technician. And when you question that, they don't want to talk about it. But we've, Donnie's a technician, I'm a technician, and somebody else was going to go to SAFE when they do theirs next month, and I can't remember who it was. They offered to let us come in and do and so has Hudamaki is doing a course in December. And they've offered to give us a couple of slots if anybody wants to go.
Catherine, Bernard mentioned the increase in workman's comp.
Heather, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
The workman's comp increase.
Yes, that's across the board as an estimate from the Maine Municipal Association.
So that might have some adjustments.
There could be a further adjustment. That was the best estimate that the Maine Municipal Association could provide at the time we put together the budget.
And that was a fallout or a consequence of accidents in other departments not specifically having to do with
Correct.
the fire department.
Correct, yes.
Anybody have any other questions for Bernard? Or about the fire, EMA, anything? Do you have anything else you need to tell us, Bernard?
The other thing, I assume everybody in the room is, all the councils at least, aware that part of this, $12,000 of this budget is paid by the town of Palmyra.
I didn't know that.
How much is?
Well,
In the revenue budget,
so in effect, for $8,100, the taxpayers in Pittsfield are getting the fire department. not 92.
And is that
I mean,
because
maybe-
you serve Palmyra?
Say again?
Is that because you
Right.
serve Palmyra?
A portion of it, yeah.
Oh, see, you learned something new every day.
Yeah, they have a service contract with Palmyra. How many years? It's been, the whole time I've been here, it's been a long time.
Long time. Back when I was that high, they were doing it, so.
Oh,
Been
that
days
was a
ago.
long time ago.
Yeah.
So does
When
Palmyra
Pittsfield was
have-
called Warsaw. When Pittsfield was called Warsaw.
Not quite that far, I can't go quite that far back. Mike, but-
So does Palmyra?
Well, I
have-
say it was a long time ago because when I was probably 13 or 14, I was working for this farmer and he decided to burn his hayfield. And I said, you know, this is not a good day to do that. It's wind is blowing. He said, yeah, but it'll burn well. Well, it did.
See, the die was cast way back then, Bernard. The die was cast way back
And
then.
I had, so we ended up having to call Pittsfield to come help us put it out. But, so I don't know, you know, that was been many, many, many years. Yeah, they went through a gyration back, Mike, can you remember back when the gal from Connecticut was gonna have you guys have your own, that must have been, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, they were all excited, they were gonna have their own department, she was gonna have, Palmyra was gonna have their own department.
It was back in the late 80s.
Yeah,
Like
the Randall brothers asked me to come to a meeting they were gonna have. Nothing, no skin off me one way or the other, which way we do it.
When's the last time that amount was negotiated with
2 years
Palmyra?
ago.
Hmm?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
And she was gonna do this, and so Charlie said to me, he said, how much is that gonna cost us? I said, a lot. And he said, I know, but how much? I said, well, first you gotta build a building, then you gotta buy a truck. And I said, if you go buying old junk trucks, you're just looking for trouble. You gotta train a bunch of people. And as it is right now, there are probably a dozen houses in Palmyra that don't fall in that 5-mile insurance thing because of their coverage. And there's no way that they could come anywhere close to that. Yeah, 2 years ago, I went out and upped it.
How long does that usually stay for, Bernard?
Before that, it'd been probably 10 years. We hadn't put it up.
Well, I know everybody's costs are going
Right.
up, so.
Well, one of the reasons that I went out to, and I went back and did some figuring, and we have not been hurt badly. We have not been hurt at all by what they have paid us. But we were getting a lot of accidents on the interstate. And you know, those can go from 15 minutes to 5 or 6 hours, depending on what's going on out there. You get a trailer truck throwing stuff around out there, and but, so I went out and we increased it from 10,000 to 12.
So, when you prepare your monthly reports, the calls that you go out on, are those calls in Palmyra included in that list?
Yep.
Okay.
Because when I report them to the national system,
It's your calls.
it's, yeah.
Okay.
In the same way, if we go mutual aid, I had to report that, but it's reported as mutual aid and who it was to. So they can tie the two calls at national level, they can tie those two calls together.
Like if you went out to help Detroit. for
Right,
example.
they,
Yeah.
you know, I'd make a report, and as well as they would, and when it gets to the big computer up there somehow or other, they say they can tie them together.
Any other questions for Bernard, folks?
No, that's good information to know. I didn't know the $12,000 thing either.
I didn't know that either. First time we ever come up. All right, so we can, I guess we can vote to just pass this on that we've reviewed it for tonight. Is there anybody have any objections to that? Okay, not hearing any, we'll go on to water sewer.
Thanks, Bernard.
Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you.
So water and sewer are in your little packet. They are in your book on page 43 through page 46. The water budget comes in at the amount of $613,824, the same as last year, but the budget is fully implemented for 2022 as we have the water rate increase was approved.
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't understand what you said.
Yes, we had a water rate increase last year, this year. But the budget that was put into place last year was the full budget, but it took a while to do the water rate increase. So for the year 2022, the full budget can be expended, $613,824. Previously, we've been holding back to match the expenses and the revenues.
Right, but the what I picked up on you, that 630,824, that was the same as last year.
Yes.
But it included a water rate increase.
Yes.
So something else increased that.
Well, no, the water
that
rate
the
increase.
rate increase offset.
The water rate increase took some time to put into place as it was very complex. So last year, the budget had been put in place as though we had the water rate increase, but we did not spend the monies. So these increases were throughout the budget. Annalise from Oliver Associates went through and put together a budget for the year 2021 and 2022. And items have been moved around for the budget for 2022 that shows more maintenance, more repair work, etc.
That was stuff we had taken out because the rate increase hadn't gone through correctly.
Correct, we weren't able to really fully implement it in this year. So if you look at your budget, you'll have to see more maintenances in the accounts, more chemicals. They're doing a lot more work with the lines.
Catherine, on line 3015, are we getting rid of pagers? Or are you guys using pagers? You're just using cell phones, right?
No, I just use my personal cell phone.
Yeah. And we pay half of that bill.
No,
Is that correct? No?
because I'm a separate entity. I'm no longer a town employee, so.
So can we verify what the telephones thing is? Because if we're not paying for their phone service.
We would have the telephones for the buildings.
Yes, but it says telephones, water $800 and half cell phones and pagers.
Yeah, that's the language that Annalise left in, but I will check that, yeah.
Because if we're not actually doing that, then does that budget item need to be, I mean, not that it's a huge amount, but
Yeah, but if we're paying $2,000 a year for the telephone system for that building.
we're paying $800 a year according to this for that building.
Which
All
page do
right.
you want, Amanda?
She's on page
43,
40.
Page 43 at the bottom, and page 32 in section 4.
So I will talk to Annalise and I will go through and make sure all the telephones that we have and the services are all in place and are the proper amounts. So I'll check that out.
I mean, if we're supposed to be paying half that phone, which really we should be if he's using his personal phone, otherwise, don't we need to be providing a work cell phone?
No, they're contractors now.
He's not an
Right,
employee
but
at
through,
Pittsfield.
we're paying them to pay him.
So they need to do that.
Yeah.
They would do that.
Okay.
And out of their expenses.
I think it may just be old language. It wasn't crossed off like some of the other items were.
Okay.
I'll just double check that.
All right.
I'll see.
Yeah, it might be.
I'll check with Annalise tonight, Catherine. I think that also might include the billing to Hussey Communications that we use for
That's what I'm thinking.
our telemetry system, but we'll get a definitive
Yeah, I was
answer,
thinking
so-
the SCADA,
Sorry, that's not
the
clear.
SCADA must be in there too. Yeah, we can check that. Thank you, Dan.
Just so everybody at home that might be watching can know who's talking, can you just introduce yourselves so that we have it in our record?
I'm Dan Piasecki. I work with Oliver Associates. We have the contract to operate the water and sewer department.
And you, sir?
James Palo. I run the water system since Chris left. It was about May of this year.
Thank you.
I'm surprised people don't have any more.
You know, read it.
So, line 4570. The equipment lease and truck lease purchase. That's an increase of $4,000. What does that do, or from, or to, or?
Yes, there was an excavator that was purchased last year. It was over the budget, last year. So, a third of the cost is charged for the excavator to sewer, a third is charged to water, and a third is charged to highway. So that was a purchase that was done in 2020.
We didn't have an excavator before that?
No.
No.
They
we
rented
always
one.
rented
They
it.
were
Renting.
there.
Huh.
So we put it in the budget to buy an excavator and then the trailer. We got the excavator and the trailer took like, oh God, it seemed like another
Too
year and a
long.
half to get the
It
trailer.
was a very long time.
Yes,
We've
yes.
got the trailer and the excavator now, so they
Okay,
can
good.
move it around as needed and not have to rely on calling someone to move equipment.
Right. So how long will this be in here till that's paid off? Do we know? Because I assume this 4570 will be in here until that equipment is paid off.
Yeah, I believe it's a 5-year rental, lease purchase.
So this is the first, this
No,
is the
this-
second budget entry, so we should see this 3 more times and then that's gone?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the CIP, or the debt service.
Yeah, it's in debt service for the highway, it's in the
Okay, all
water
right,
for the
all right.
water, and it's in the sewer for the sewer.
Okay, gotcha. I'm all set with that, thank you.
Yeah, I think we're paying, what, $16,000 a year in rentals, something like that?
The years varied, it could be, 8,000, it could be much more. It just depended on how many water breaks there were, so fortunately, we have it now, considering how many water breaks there were on just one road. Jim knows all about that.
Many long nights.
And then line 6533, property tax, it says that we're paying to Burnham and Detroit. Can you just explain that to me?
Yes, we have facilities in Burnham and Detroit, and part of your agreements that you made to purchase those properties back in the 1990s for those facilities, the town agreed to compensate the town for the lost taxes, so they're basically paying a tax bill. We get a tax bill each year from the town of Detroit and Burnham, and I just make sure that they're paid. They have discounts, not much anymore, but I make sure they're paid to get the discount.
And what is that property used for?
For the water, the pumping station is over across the line.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have that, and then you've got the wells in the other town.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize those were across the lines.
Yeah, they're right over the bridge on Falcone.
Any other questions, counselors? Anything else you need to tell us?
I don't believe so. That's probably it.
If nobody has any other questions for water, then we'll mark that as reviewed for this evening, and we will go on to...
Review with a follow-up on line 30-15.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So approved with an asterisk.
Okay, so we'll go on to sewer. We've got flip pages.
Sewer is on page 45 to 46. One more on 45.
Just wouldn't fit, huh?
It just would not fit, that's right. Tried to crunch it up there.
Go back 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag.
Margins, it's all about moving the margins. All right, counselors, questions, this also falls under our contract with Oliver Associates. Any questions here on sewer? This is just operating budget, not capital capital improvements or any of those other funding?
Line 505-30. What is that, membership or dues? What is that?
Yes, it's not membership or dues for the employees, it's a requirement of the state of Maine that we charge and pay for different permits. And so there are 2 permits that we have to pay to the state of Maine.
So should we call that permits or licensing? Because memberships and dues is like
Yeah, that's where it's been all these years,
well,
so I left it in there.
I'll probably ask the same question next year.
It is listed out on the page 45 schedule, is it not
Yep.
listed on the,
Everybody's budget.
on the other version?
No, in section 4, page 36, no. Maybe it's more details, deeper in there, I was just curious. Can that be changed at all? I know it's just a minor change, but if it's a licensure and permit requirement, we should actually call it what it
Yeah,
is.
so I'll double check. There's a setup that we have to use for water. So back on water, the memberships and dues has the Maine Rural Water Association that we're in. And so the sewer sort of follows that, but I'll double check and see if it needs to be in there. If not, we can move it someplace.
Well, okay, I have no problem with what it's for or the amount.
Right.
It's just, I wouldn't consider that a membership or a due.
It is weird because under that listing, it's under personnel expenses,
I know.
health insurance, mandatory training.
Yeah.
Well, sewer is a
Just
very
cause
personal
less.
thing.
Cause less confusion if it's called licensure, that's all.
Well, the problem
Yeah,
is, you
yeah.
can't change that, the heading, I don't believe in that, for that particular, that 5-30. It's in everybody's budget, you can't change that for one
Right.
Right, it should actually be
somewhere else.
Probably
yeah.
like under contract services or something like that, or utilities or
Contract
insurances or
service.
something.
I'll check into that and see if there's another place to put it. First, I'll check with the state on the water and how we're supposed to set these up and make sure that we don't
sewer
have to
would
leave
follow.
it there. You know, you have to call the state, they have a certain account set up that we're required to have for water only, sewer is on our
Well,
own.
sewer would follow, so to speak.
Yes, yes.
You drink water, sewer, drink water.
So no problem with the amount that's in there, just the way it's listed as the semantics of the actual presentation for it. Those are mandated by the state, so we can't really say we're not gonna pay them.
Yeah,
I guess we could,
check on
but,
that.
you know, then there's that to deal with.
Well, actually, I do have one more. 25-05, contractual. That's a almost $18,000 increase.
Yes, the sewer maintenance manhole raising was placed in there. That was a suggestion from Annalise, and a good suggestion, as Jim knows from the condition of some of the manholes and how people hit them. This is something that would be town-wide to fix some of the worst manholes and have a contractor do it. So that is the increase.
So was it at 2,000 before, that particular item?
I think that the numbers may have been changed around. Each year, the costs are different on the trio maintenance, for example,
Okay.
the audit, computers.
But you think most of that
Yes.
18,000 increase is coming from that?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And is that just based on like the number of manholes that need to be done?
It was an estimate from Annalise, based upon her experience in other towns.
I'm all set.
I have one question, Catherine. I know that we changed stuff around because we finally got the approval from the federal government to not have to keep putting a certain amount in. But we had talked about reserving that amount that we were putting into that sludge fund to have it be able to be for other project things. How was that dealt with?
So we have in both the water and sewer an additional debt service item for a project. And so we used Annalise's budget, which does have more maintenance and work to be done, especially something like the manhole raising, which would be important for the customers and the citizens. So we do have a debt service payment here for an additional project for sewer, an additional project for water.
So that's how we reallocated those
Yes.
funds? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And then after a year of these budgets, actually doing all the items, we'll have an idea of how the budget should be set up and everything.
Okay, thanks, Catherine.
So, one more question, if I may, on line 60-70. That's a $20,000 increase. Brakes problems due to aging, increased sewer improvements. What specifically are we talking about? There's got to be some area of concern that maybe doubles that line item. Do we know?
All right, that was a suggestion from Annalise. Jim, do you have specific areas that Annalise talked to you about for sewer work?
I do know the Main Street has got issues, you know,
Oh, yeah.
lower Main Street going down the hill by Brent's, you know, has got old clay tile pipe, there's a lot of roots in that, and, you know, we have to get easements and stuff to work on that. And I know Upper Main Street there's actually a section of pipe that there's actually a hole in.
Is that specifically what increased that line item? Do you know that?
I'm not sure about that, I'll double check with Annalise on that.
Okay.
Dan, you have an idea on that one?
This would be more smaller items, repairs that were needed, not so much the larger projects. In the sewer flow study that Oliver Associates did in 2009, there was a listing of over $8 million of suggested sewer improvements for the town of Pittsfield. And so those are the larger projects we'd have the debt service for. These would be more of the problems that happen like on a monthly basis.
Right, but I'm curious as to what specifically doubled that line item.
Yeah,
There's got to be something specific in sight instead of just generalizations, because no one's going to buy $20,000 worth of generalization.
Yeah, I can ask Annalise. I'm sure she has something in mind.
If you would, please.
I'll check with her. We're being more aggressive about repairs and going after things that may have.
Nope, understood, and I agree. I'm just concerned, I mean, there's got to be some reason why she or Oliver Associates came up with $20,000 to put on that line item. There's got to be something that they're considering to do that.
I'm not sure if that was at the pump station, the Main Street pump station, which is in poor condition, and DEP has issued a warning letter about that. If that's included in this, if that's, I do see it's on the capital.
It's on the big capital list.
So.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm yeah.
I would
I'm saying
imagine it's a
67.
lot of the Birchwood Terrace type
Yeah.
breaks
It's,
that we.
more
Yeah,
things that happen.
and that's what I was considering, but I'd like to know specifically. I know we've talked about it, and we have the price from Vortec, well, the
Yeah,
camera
Vortec
inspection
Services.
company is,
Yeah.
to do the inspection. I know there's money already tied up in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could find that out.
We will, yep.
Thank you for that.
I had a quick on 0105. Who are we still paying? Who's still employed by us?
Yes, so for water sewer, all the expenses that are acquired by water sewer under the law are supposed to be charged to the water and sewer because they're treated like utilities even though they're owned by the town. So that is the other part of the financial office. 40% of the time is spent on water sewer. So we only budget 60% in finance, and the 40% is divided in water and sewer.
For the town office to process the paperwork?
Yeah, to do everything. All
So that's the cost for the billing?
Yes, that, answering all the questions, sending out the letters,
Okay.
working on the payment arrangements.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So you're saying this number in here, 24,875, is half the total? So we're looking at $49,000 to handle billing?
Well, it's everything. I mean, all day long you can work on water sewer. I can work on water sewer all day long. So we did a study and found that 40% of the time of the staff upstairs up front was doing water sewer and working with the customers and everything. And so years ago, the budget got divided up. So 60% of the finance time is on regular citizens, taxpayers, tax dollars, and 40% is on water and sewer, split into 20% in water and 20% in sewer. And for example, items like for supplies, when we buy the envelopes that are used, the postage that's used to send out things, that all gets charged to the water and sewer department. Because you're supposed to keep all your sewer expenses for your utility in the utility, water and sewer.
So
So
usually, it would be a little more straightforward because it would be a completely separate office with a dedicated staff.
Yes.
Versus our staff does numerous things, so it's split up.
I was curious as how that's tracked accurately so that we know it's that much.
Catherine, I know I've brought this up before, and I know it's something we can't just, decide on tonight, but I would really like us to look into it again. I mean, at $50,000, and that's just what we're charging these two accounts, not the rest of the time that's being spent on this stuff. $50,000 between the two accounts is spent on billing and dealing with customer service stuff. Why aren't we contracting that out?
All right, and that was something that we are looking at,
Okay.
definitely, but it's gonna take a while to go through.
Oh, no, I know that. I just wanted to reaffirm that I think, especially since wages are going up
Oh,
and
yes,
everything like
definitely.
that contracting out, I think, makes the most sense.
Yes, I think we all would be happy with that, but we gotta go through the process.
Right,
But-
yes.
Maybe that's something that the finance committee can follow up on in 2022 and have that be a project to work on, looking at that, looking at some of the other items that have come up during budgeting over the years as far as staffing and whatnot. Any other questions about the sewer budget before us? Okay, so we'll mark that one reviewed. We're gonna look for more information about the capital expenses, line 60-70. See if there's any more details on that one.
Yes, thank you.
And like Catherine said, this is the same budget that we operated under this year. There wasn't any changes to the dollar amount. Just this year's budget wasn't fully implemented because the rate schedule didn't start until August. By the time all the filings and everything were done with the PUC, I think it was August 1st it was actually implemented. Does that sound right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it takes a while to go through the whole process. So we'll look at all of that, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for coming in tonight. We're going to go on to police and animal control.
So, Heather, we had Rusty Bell on about the repeater. I don't know if you'd like to talk to him first.
Was that part of the police budget or was that the additional?
It is additionals, but the finance committee did agree that Rusty would come to this meeting.
Okay, so that's in the back of our books?
He
Is
was
there
gonna give
additional
some
background for it or just what was in our books?
He's gonna give us background because there really wasn't any background on it.
Okay.
So what is this for? Is this a budget item?
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
budget
it's a
item that's
budget.
additional, but the finance committee, in talking with Pete at their last meeting, decided that Rusty would give us an update. Rusty has a communications company, and had given a quote to Pete a bit more about the repeater issue.
So that's something that's in the budget now?
It might be. Yeah,
He's
it's
requesting it to
additional.
be part of the budget, but we didn't understand it.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay. Roger that, thank you.
And so he's patiently come back.
Okay. Thank you, Rusty. Glad you could join us this evening and tell us all about repeaters.
Sure. Thank you for having me. If we go back to years ago, the town was able to operate with an antenna off of just the police and fire department there right in town. But as the federal government has changed regulations, narrow banded, I actually had a conversation with Bernard, the fire chief, a couple of weeks ago at the station on how that has impacted coverage and those kind of things. What that means is they've basically taken the size of everyone's voice and made it smaller by law to try to put more users in what they call adjacent frequencies. The way that I term it so it's easy to understand, is they're going through the trailer park and trying to put a trailer in between every trailer that's already there. That's kind of how I would term that. So in doing that, they've reduced the frequency, the modulation, the voice. They've reduced its ability to travel so that they can, again, put more trailers in the neighbor's trailer park. So we all have been forced to go to a repeater, which a repeater actually repeats the signal. Fire and police have been on the water tower up by the hospital. They were on the water tower on Phillips Corner Road. And then when the county was doing its expansion, Mike Smith at Somerset provided the equipment, and they were able to go in out to Gregman's on that tower, I believe on the Pooler Road. Is that the name of the road there? And so now police and fire communications are at one side of the town. So if you can look at that, you're talking when you're in town, whether it's fire or police, they're talking to West Pittsfield out there. And the idea would be to get some communication back into the center of town. We've had quite a few conversations about how we could accomplish that. Obviously, the more money that is put in it, the smoother that process becomes. But what my recommendation is, short term, is to do a test that wouldn't cost anything, to get a repeater in the center of town to augment, to supplement the existing communications that's out there, and kind of run that simultaneously as a test. And if that did improve communication without causing operational difficulties, meaning the changing of channel or any confusion, we would do that in a way that everyone would know that we were doing it as a test, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be depended upon, but it would be able to be tested. Then if that works, it would be a short-term fix. And then for the longer term, you could look at doing something that would benefit fire and police by tying the two sites, the town and the West Pittsfield, together so that it's simulcasted, and meaning that when one site talked, the other site talked in time. So you'd actually be getting that double coverage all the time. But that's, you know, around round numbers, around $100,000. The county has 6 sites trying to cover Somerset County. So my idea is always something as practical as we can, for as least as we can, determine how well it works, and then plan long term for something that would provide 20 plus years of communication and help both the fire and police department.
So kind of a finance question, would this be split between fire and police for expense? Are we looking at a CIP project for this because of the full
I would
amount?
look at that.
Well, we're not looking at $100,000 right now, it's just the repeater we're looking at, which is much less. So the repeater is the test part of it.
Rusty, what did you say the repeater would be if you were going to implement it after your tests? Approximately around 10,000?
It would be, yeah, and it would be less than that because you have the antenna in place, the cable in place at the department. So basically, the test would happen going right back to the original setup in the center of town from years ago. And if that was helpful, then you probably would be closer to $5,000. And you'd look at that as a bridge that would get you to the future where you could plan and budget to do something long term.
So to do the test, it doesn't cost anything to do the test?
Correct.
But if the test works and we want to make sure that we can have the ability to purchase it, then we'd have to have $5,000 in the budget, correct, Catherine?
Rusty's indicating that rather than the higher figure that's on the paper, he's suggesting 5,000, yes.
Okay.
Rusty, you're talking about hooking it up just the same as we used to with it,
Yeah.
the repeater sitting here on the desk in the office.
Yeah, probably maybe out of the way a little bit, but yes, exactly like that. Right back to the cable that run down into the office, and then we would use the antenna that's on the top, it's on the hose tower or wherever it is up there.
It's up on the hose tower.
Well, Bert and Pete, have there been communication issues where this is a necessity? Have there?
We've had a lot of calls where we've had officers who can't communicate with other officers at the scene. I had one up on Fairview Street probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, where I was actually inside the building. I had two bad guys in the building, both had warrants. I had two officers right outside. One of them was Mike, 20 feet or 30 feet away from me, and they couldn't even hear me. And I was telling them I needed help inside. So when I went inside, I had two bad guys there. But we've had, that's just one example. We've had several in different parts of town. But my question would be, I wonder if we could use any of that COVID money that we've talked about in the past couple of meetings that's available. I just don't know what we can use it for. But we might be able to use some of that money to offset some of this.
Well, that would be considered emergency funds, right? So couldn't we use it for that?
But it
Well,
doesn't
that'd be an
really-
easy sell.
It
would
doesn't
think.
really
Yeah.
have anything to do with COVID. I mean, we can pose the question to the help desk for the federal government.
But does it say that it's specifically for emergency funds for COVID? Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that ARPA doesn't state that. I think it has to go toward emergency stuff, but not specifically for COVID.
It does have COVID in part of the paragraph, though. That's a question that was still pending.
It's definitely worth asking the question.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we have
It's
the
good.
other question.
That's a
about-
good idea, excellent idea.
I'd like to point out that it would also help the ambulances. So,
Yeah.
not just the fire and police, but the emergency response. So that could fit under the building.
I guess I wasn't aware there was that much of a situation, initial communications.
So if it's not eligible, if it turns out it's not eligible for the ARPA funding, for the COVID funding, Bernard, is this something that would fall under EMA?
It might. They tightened up radio stuff a whole bunch because people were buying fancy stuff they didn't need. But I will go look and see what's out there. My question to Rusty is, are we going to have to run two repeaters because we're going to be running on separate frequencies? Or can you do them both off the one?
I would intend to do it both off the one, it's kind of how Somerset had to do it before they got the grant to do the upgrade. So we would put the channel selection in the hands of the officer, more like we've done for years, rather than putting it in the hands of the GPS timing device and the computer. It's very reasonable. It's not something that's too much to ask of someone to be able to do. It's something we've done for a long time. Also, if you could tell me or send me an email with who you want me to send it to, I can send it to Pete. But I also have a letter that I use in my other life as police chief in Clinton. We received COVID funds through Kennebec EMA for radio equipment, and it was because of lack of ability to communicate during the pandemic. we weren't able to communicate with our sheriff's department because of what they had done to change their frequency. And it was accepted because it was coordination of personnel and emergency operations during the pandemic. And I can send a copy of that letter along to anybody that would like it, just to take a look at it.
If you would, please, that would help us greatly.
Sure. I'll send it to Pete first thing in the morning.
Excellent.
It sounds like if the test is free, we can do that now. We don't have to wait until 2022.
Right.
We can do that now, and it sounds like if it's, I mean, at first we were thinking the line item was $30,000, now it's $5,000. If the test works, we don't have to wait another 2 months to
Right.
get the repeater going either.
Right.
Yes.
We can do that now as
Especially
well.
if it's covered by
And we-
the
yep.
ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Even if it's not covered by ARPA funds, there's
Yeah, I
money
mean, it's $5,000.
in
It'll fit in the budget.
And-
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's an emergency, it's
I
not
mean,
like
it's-
it's,
So Rusty, what you're talking of doing the same as we do now. We want to talk to just the fire department, we go to our frequency. We want to talk to county, we go to county frequency. Just switch it on our radio.
Yes. So what I'm doing with the police department would be just changing the PL to open the repeater in town, and change the PL to open the repeater on the Fuller Road differently, so that you'd have an in-town channel and an out-of-town channel for the police department for this test. And they would maybe draw a line where they would start using the West Pittsfield Cooler Road, whether, it's out further, or whether it's, right after the interstate. It would just be something that we could all understand after we do a test, to see where the in-town one picks up, where the out-of-town one covers better, and then just kind of draw some guidelines from there. And that would help all the way around, because I never ever want to sell something that we don't understand how it's going to work. And we could actually end up going with the more expensive system in a few years and still have a problem if we hadn't done this kind of test in looking for where it's going to work and how the frequencies are going to lay over the top of each other. And we only would visualize that, but it really does happen. So for now, we would just be making the choice by the channel switch, just like it always has been. But it would be 2 police frequencies, but both with the same frequency number.
So you just change the PL code in it, so we wouldn't actually have to change frequencies.
Right, we wouldn't do any licensing. We would just change the PL in it for the test, and we wouldn't cause any interference with anybody else, because we wouldn't be operating outside of our license, because we're licensed at both locations. So I just think it would be a good test, and it would give everyone some real life experience with what the need is and what the solution can be. And again, it's not going to cost anything, because it's better for the town of Pittsfield to purchase something than it would for them to be sold something. If you buy it, you know how it works. So that's kind of my goal.
So will this repeater, you say, work with our current communication system that we have in place? Or do we have to upgrade that?
No. It's just another one of what you already have on the Fuller Road. So we're just taking another pod, another channel, and putting it in the center of town, closer to the factories, closer to Chimbro, closer to all that, so that if someone is operating right within town, the problem doesn't happen with a car. The problem is when they're on portable. We have some solutions that they already have for that, but I just think this test, whether you end up buying something or not, will give good feedback for what the solution needs to be in the future.
So, when this test happens, if we get an affirmative and it works, do we know how much this would cost and what line item it would be? I mean, should we act upon this evening, or is this informational, then we come back and do the budget on that again? What's the plan here?
It sounds like we can, I'm unclear as to whether the council has to approve this, or we just go ahead and have them do the test and then come back and let us know what the cost and what the recommendation
Yeah, I
would
think
be.
that we do the test, we're all here, and think
Yeah.
it would be good. It's not gonna cause any interference or trouble, it's not gonna be outside the license. We just authorize the test by saying, yes, we'd like to have it tested, then we'll find out what the results are.
Do we need to do that in a regular meeting? To have a vote for it, or?
Because
technically
it
in our
was
budget,
requested
we're-
as an additional, can't we just approve it?
So, no,
test doesn't
if it's
cost anything.
presented as an additional item in the budget, we can't just approve it and have it done because it's for next year's funding. But,
But we're gonna do it this year.
but we can say at our, we have a meeting next week,
You
right?
really need to approve this.
Yes, but I
No,
it's a
think
free
that
test.
we've hooked and unhooked these things before, so I don't see any issue with testing us.
So go ahead and do the test then, and then come back to us with a recommendation after the test is completed. Then it would become a regular council item,
Yes.
and then it would be reviewed and then voted
Yes.
on. And based on the fact that there's funding in the police department already, you know, we could go ahead and do the system, and then, most of the ARPA funding, you have to expend the funds anyway and then get reimbursed. So we could do that, and that would give Catherine time to look into the ARPA funds. And if it doesn't fall into the ARPA, then maybe Bernard can look under some of the other communications EMA type funding to see if we can preserve some of the funds in the town budget. That's always better than not. So I think that sounds like
A plan.
about what is going to happen. Does that make sense?
Getting Rusty's email would be helpful. too.
Yes,
Just-
yes.
He already did it once, so, as far as the funding goes.
Yes.
Right, he
They got-
said he was going to send that to me.
Right, so yeah.
Yeah,
You can send that to Chief
That'd be
Bidmore,
great.
or you can also send a copy to Catherine for the town office.
yeah, and then we'll
I
use
can
that
forward
letter
it.
with
Yeah,
the help
absolutely, I
desk.
will.
Yeah.
And we'll use the letter with the help desk for the funding. Thank you, Rusty, that would be very helpful.
Any other questions, Counselor?
Yeah, just one more
Yeah.
quick question for you, Mr. Bell. So when could you get this test implemented, and how long would it take, and when would you have the results? What kind of time frame we're looking, approximately?
I would say that we could put that in and get it tested in the next couple of weeks, and then I think it would be good to give it a few weeks of operation so that they can gather some real life data on how it changes or doesn't change, and just give it a good amount of time, because it's going to be a test where we're going to program radios that they have to have this extra channel, and then pretty much give them a little bit of instruction, which won't be much, but turn them loose so they will get the real life feedback on how it works for them, rather than the radio man comes up with the vehicle and programs that he does a test and he tells you it works good and he goes away. I like to do the ones where the user does the test, so they can say, wow, this really benefits us, or wow, we still have a dead spot, say out by the interstate or down by the dam or whatever. So, I would say, probably we would be to the first of the year with the install, and then give them some time to work it out and test it, and then come back together at some point, because then you'll have your information on your COVID funding and the other thing. But again, my short-term suggestion is just going to be something around $5,000, and I can get a real number to the town manager and the chief. And that real number doesn't go from 5 to 10. It's just around 5, maybe 6, but maybe 4, just depending on what we have to use when we do the test.
Right.
Meaning, what we'll have to use when we put it in after we do the test,
All right, thank you very much for that.
So keeping that in mind then.
No, I appreciate being able to participate in this because I'm sure some of you know, I mean, Chief Williams understands that I started my police career in Pittsfield, so if it wasn't for Pittsfield, I might have had to get a real job at some point along the way. So I met my wife there, so Pittsfield's pretty special though.
So if we're looking at it being somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000, can't we just put it in the budget as an approved line item anyway for 2022 since we know? And then if the grant can cover it, great.
That's
But-
dependent if it works.
Right, but if it doesn't work and then we don't use it, then that's money that gets expended. So I'm just trying to think of how, because this is an additional budget item, how do we proceed with this police budget, with this specific item that we know won't get purchased until 2022? Are we going
We
to
can-
carry over funds that we have in the police budget now into that in case ARPA funds can't cover it?
Yeah, I think we'll write out the different scenarios and figure out how to address this.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do something prior to the end of the year. Yeah,
But the testing can start now.
correct,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, because that doesn't cost anything.
Well, great, thank you, Rusty, we appreciate the extra information and, filling us in on all that. That, sounds like it's gonna be very beneficial.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I apologize, I thought he was gonna be speaking to items for communication within the department's budget. Okay, so let's go on to police department. Do you wanna do animal control first, Pete, or do you wanna go to the,
Sure.
the big budget? Do you wanna
ACO.
do ACO?
All right, in your
Thank
package,
you.
animal control is on page 26, and in your book on tab 3. Animal control budget has come in at $31,003. It is an increase of $14,875, a 92.2% increase.
Can you say that again, 14,800 and,
Yes, the animal control budget has come in at $31,003. It is an increase of $14,875, or an increase of 92.2%.
thank you.
I guess a lot of that would be the, Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, but the ACO services for his pay.
So the budget has 300, the pay before was 150 per week. The budget that was put together had 300, and then you wanted to increase that to 350 a week plus mileage. The mileage is in the budget currently.
So why the big increase on that?
No, it was 300, Catherine.
All right, you advised me 350, but it's 300?
No, it was to 300, then plus mileage.
Okay, so it is 300 plus mileage,
Correct.
not 350. Okay,
That's what it says in the book. Yeah.
that's what we put in the book, yes.
And that was going from 150, and that was because we don't have an ACO currently, and we have a very hard time finding an ACO. Nobody wants to be an ACO. And the one that we have now that's been helping us out part-time, that's basically what he told me he charges.
Do we have the animal shelter services, that is contractual, and do we have updated numbers? It seems like they always tell us after we get our budget done.
Correct, that is the situation we're in now. We have asked, and we did, staff did call around to different locations and didn't really get much information back. Because this is an area of struggle for dealing with the animals.
So we're confident the 7,500 is about where the contract's gonna be this year.
That is the price that we currently have, and we don't have the new price back. It may fall into the same situation. you know, the pricing is coming.
Will we still have the ability to adjust this if they could get us pricing before the final budget hearing?
Oh,
We
certainly.
have the opportunity to adjust that contractual.
Oh, yes, we would do the pluses and minuses. You've got a few little pluses and minuses so far.
So we need new contract there. And then, Pete, you said that we're at 300. Can you remind me what we were paying Connie?
150 a week.
And we used to pay on call, so each call was actually reimbursed on an individual basis versus having somebody being paid on a weekly basis. Can you speak to that?
Sure. I mean, I had advocated a couple of years ago to change it to a weekly basis because in this case it was Connie and she couldn't basically afford to work for us for an on-call basis. She had to be able to plan on having a certain amount of money coming in because sometimes it's really busy in a week and sometimes it's slower. But it wasn't really fair to her to not have her on some type of a salary where she could plan on, you know, that's why she was handling several towns. So she wasn't making enough money doing it the way that just being on call and receiving so much an hour. And I think we'd have a hard time finding anyone to do it like that now anyways. Nobody wants to do it. It's a real problem.
You got a budget to live, right? So.
I mean,
Well, and this $300 a week is what he charges as a contractual thing anyway, correct, Pete?
yes, ma'am. So we're talking like 15,600 or something like that for his, 15,600 per year for that portion. And I'm not counting mileage.
And we had originally budgeted how much for the ACO if we had been able to hire one, Pete?
I think it was, I can't remember, I think it was 50 something or 60 something with, that was the officer / ACO.
So like 25 with the ACO part of it,
Yeah.
approximately.
That was the job description that sort of had everything. It had the patrol officer, the ACO, it had detective at one time. So it's much easier to hire, it's hard to hire anyone, but it's easier to hire just regular patrol than to add on ACO.
Right, no, that makes sense. I'm just saying, I mean, we're saving, if you think of it that way, about approximately 10 grand to contract out for this guy before mileage.
Plus benefits.
No, we're not.
Plus we're not
saving.
paying the
We're
benefits.
doubling the budget. We're not saving anything doing it this way.
But we are not
Oh, yeah.
hiring an ACO.
Right.
We're not worrying about, we're not talking about an officer / ACO like Amanda's talking about. We're not talking about, you know, a truck, a vehicle. You know, we don't want
Because
to
he
put.
already brings that.
Correct. We don't want to put animals in the cruises. That can be a safety issue for the officers.
Workers' comp, health insurance.
Correct.
So we've never had those expenses with our ACO in the past though, even though they were an employee, they were part-time, they didn't have health insurance or workman's comp, I guess maybe workman's comp because of the
We wouldn't
work.
have.
Well, it's
Right,
not-
but the
it's
original
not in that.
position that we had approved before did have all of that because they were a part-time ACO, part-time officer.
Correct.
That was my point, is that we are saving money off of that because we're no longer looking at that. We're looking at a contractual person.
That budget item only came about because we were trying to reconcile, trying to find an officer and trying to fund the officer by tagging on the ACO to it. And the ACO funds were partially funding that officer position, so it didn't increase the budget so much. So it wasn't like a standalone thing, it was kind of taken in context with the fact that we were trying to provide more officer coverage, but at the same time, not increase the budget to the full amount of a new full officer, plus have the ACO You see what I mean? That's where that, position came from. So, and we've never hired that position, so we're not gonna save any money from that, because we haven't expended those funds for that position.
No, I understand that, but what I was saying, and I remember how we came about to the part-time ACO and officer thing. I do remember what we went through that. What I'm saying is this budget, compared to that budget, I know we have not expended those funds because nobody can hire officers. What I'm saying is we are, in the long run, going to end up saving money by contracting. We no longer have the liability because we're contracting with an ACO, which is what we've done in the past. I don't see an issue with an increase, as much as I don't like seeing my tax bill go up either, of $300 a week when we're looking at cost of living increases that are more than that. Somebody has to be able to survive. The other option is we have nobody as an ACO. That's all I was saying.
And the increase is only 150
Right.
above what it was. So.
And mileage isn't gonna be that much.
No. Depends on gas.
Well, that's another issue that I'm gonna bring up tonight about gas, but,
So mileage is listed here as $5,200. Is that a correct amount to estimate for the mileage that would be driven?
I mean, gas has gone up, what, 100% or
Well, this
something
is just a
crazy?
straight mileage reimbursement, would be at like the federal rate or this.
Yeah, I know, I
flat
think
rate.
it's like 50 cents a mile.
It would be at our rate, which is 50 cents per
50
mile.
cents a mile. Do we have a report from the contractor now as far as, is he putting in for mileage now?
He's just been helping us sporadically the last few months.
And how are we paying him currently?
I don't think we have paid him. Well, we paid him, I think, once.
Is he charging us per
He's
call?
not, he hasn't been doing anything for a while. He had family health problems, different things going on, and we haven't had anyone for, how long has it been, like 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
A few months.
So how are we handling our ACO calls now, if we don't have this gentleman available to us?
He's been helping us out on his own when he can.
I'm confused. Do we have somebody providing ACO services for us now?
Not officially. He's just been helping us out. We haven't had Connie in a few months.
More like 6 months.
It's been that long, 6 months.
Yeah.
Do you have a person in mind for this position?
Yeah,
Okay.
Dave Huff.
Okay, yeah.
He does it for 3 or 4 other towns also.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know who he is.
And that's how he makes a living. That's why about having a set fee. He can't do it by the call. It just, he can't. That was the same problem Connie complained about.
you said he's doing 3 or 4 towns?
Yeah. Connie was doing, I think, 5 or 6, and then she just took on Waterville.
So I guess I'm gonna pull a mic here and wonder if we're doing a contractual basis here, why we would just put this out to bid. It's a $15,000, plus mileage is another $5,000. So it's like a $20,000 item, so why would we not put this out to bid?
I don't know.
I guess another question, does this have to fall under our bid for services, Catherine, because of the amount? Or is this different because it's kind of its own little department?
All right, you can choose to put it out to bid. We put it out to bid before. You did not get many bidders at all. I'm not sure how many you would even get now, but it has been bid out before in the past, but that was years ago. There were more people doing ACO services then. There's very few doing it now.
So it sounds like we'll fall up against the same thing as with our pipeline type.
Even if we put it out to bid, don't we have to have it in the budget as a certain amount that we plan on spending?
Yes, it would have to be in the budget like it is now.
Thank you.
How many calls do they get? What's history show? How many calls they get a year, or a month, a week?
Well, it can be real sporadic,
Yeah, I
but,
figured
you know,
that.
sometimes we can have 20, 25 calls a week.
Or all domestic animals or these are wildlife animals too?
No, mostly domestic cats, dogs.
Horses.
Huh?
Horses.
Yeah, horses. Yeah. Anything else, we've called the warden service. Although Dave does a lot of the, you know, those types of animals also. Skunks and raccoons and.
So he could end up going a week without getting a call, he's gonna get paid for it anyways, right?
Yeah, he could. Yeah. Or he can be deluged. And, you know, that's why, I mean, it's really up and down.
But if he does 4 or 5 towns, in each town is gonna give him $300 a week, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah, but you also heard that there's no insurance.
He has no insurance.
It's up to him.
And he's providing his own transportation.
I mean, it's like Catherine said, I doubt you'd find anybody that would put in for this if we put it out to bid. It's kind of a.
And if they did, I think it'll be much more expensive than 15.
But to Amanda's point, we can vote on this and put it in there and then put out the bid, because this is gonna be a amount that we're gonna be contracting anyway.
Yeah.
And this is the amount. However we get that person, this is gonna be the amount, so it's not gonna hold us from making discussions and voting on this budget line item.
Absolutely.
Do we have parameters for the ACO to operate under as far as dealing with domestic animals only? And like the wildlife, the skunks and raccoons and stuff that you spoke about. There's private companies that deal with wildlife. There's the wardens. They can deal with animals like that.
I think it comes down, I'm not positive, but I think it comes down to certifications. And I think Dave is certified in a lot of those. Don't ask me which ones, but I think a lot of those other types of animals, he can handle them. Whereas maybe, you know, someone that came in off the street, they would have to be certified and get those certificates.
Well, I guess my point would be that we could negotiate a lower rate if we said you're only going to be dealing with dogs and cats, or the loose horse, or the random cow or pig, or something like that, versus the wildlife type issues. Because there are companies that will deal with a skunk under your porch or something like that for private companies.
I don't think we should do that. I think that would make it pretty complicated. And Dave has been doing this stuff for years, and he is well known around the whole area, and he's like an encyclopedia when it comes to this stuff, and he really knows his stuff. That would be my recommendation. Stick with him.
I think the standard is domestic animals only, because I've made several calls. You know, I've had a rabbit, a mangy fox, not a mangy fox as a no good fox, a fox with mange. I've had rabbit, skunks. I've called the towns and know it's got to be the warden service. You know, so there is a line there. It is domestic animals. Mice and occasional horse.
It sounds like he was dealing with things that weren't. That's why I was wondering.
He's put out like, I know Connie in the past, she's put out like traps for foxes and rabid, you know, animals like that.
Well, that's fine, as long as we're not billing the town for it. If we're saying it's domestic only, then that's what we should be servicing, and, you know, separating those calls out and saying, okay, if that type of call comes in, this is who you need to call for it, that it's not our ACO providing those services.
Well, it's a flat rate per week anyway.
Right.
Yes, I did want to note that the contract that we've used in the past when we had a variety of individuals that have done this work was for domestic animals only, because that's what the animal control officer is listed for under the state law. What happens is that perhaps Mr. Huff, and there are other people in the area that have an animal nuisance permits from the state, so they can trap different animals legally. So they will charge first. Usually they charge people for that service.
Right. Well, I guess that was my point, is that, you know, we shouldn't be paying, the town shouldn't have to be paying for that, it should be domestic only. So,
I think since I've been here, the ACO's pretty much handled, you know, most of the calls. I mean, we haven't had any alligators or anything like that. The wild snakes.
I've always accused Dave of having a pet skunk coming back to him. We keep using them again and again.
Plus, when you've got a rabid fox running through town, who gets charged for that? Because we have actually had that, I've seen it.
The game
And
warden.
it runs
Yeah,
through
that'd be
town,
the
but good
warden.
luck getting a hold of
Yeah,
the
we
game
called the
warden.
game wardens immediately. They had the problematic foxes up at the pool,
Well,
hanging around the
we had it
cafeteria.
around our neighborhood and going down toward Peltoma, and that fox was all over the place.
so this is gonna be on a contractual basis, not on a employee basis.
Yes, definitely.
Any other questions, counselor? Okay, so we'll mark this one as reviewed. Okay, so we're gonna flip back to page 22 on section 3.
All right, so the next budget is the police department budget. And the police department budget is on page 22 to 23 in your handout, which is also part 3 of your book. The police department budget comes in at $1,009,830. It's an increase of $199,500, or a 24.6% increase. The communications budget was rolled into that, so you can see above there a negative. So if you take the 22,570 out, that was rolled in there. The increase was actually $176,930, or a 21.8% increase.
Can you say the comm budget again that was rolled in? The amount?
Yes, police department budget was an increase of $199,000.
No, just the communications budget that we rolled
Oh,
into it.
communications, okay, that was $22,570.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, question, the line item 15-15, building maintenance, there's an increase of over 13 grand on that, from 2,200 last year to 15,450 right now. What was the big jump on that?
Well, we're still hoping to get interior problems taken care of. The stairs, painting,
Mostly the floors.
floors, yeah, the stairs, the floors.
The bulk of that was the floors.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if you've been up there, but all of the tiles, they're all cracked all around.
So we have proposals to back that up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have purchase orders in now for that,
okay. All right.
right?
Well, for the stairs.
Stairs, yeah.
So the purchase order for the stairs was approved in July by Kathy. And I haven't seen any other purchase orders for any other items, but you wouldn't have, because if it's the floors, you wouldn't have put it in yet.
I don't know if that's, I don't think it was approved, was it?
I haven't seen it
It's
come
been approved a
back.
long time ago,
I haven't seen it.
and it was approved verbally at 2 meetings of the finance committee too.
I haven't seen it.
Well, I would imagine
the
purchase
last-
orders are approved on paper and
Yes.
tracked that way.
Yes,
Verbal
we were
approval is
at a
not.
finance committee meeting, and I said, just go do it. But no, Kathy went through and approved that one, so that's been all set since
Can
July.
it just be resent to the police department? It looks like they didn't get it.
Yeah, I can ask her to do that.
So if it's already been approved for, at least for the stairs, I know the floor is a separate item, what is the amount in this 15,000 that's for the stairs that I assume would come out of 2021 budget instead of 2022? Would that knock that down? Am I correct in assuming that, Catherine? The stairs would be on the 2021 budget, not
Yes,
2022?
2021 budget. I didn't think the stairs were in the 2022 budget, because I asked Michael, and he had noted it was the floor work, and also you haven't done some of the furniture for the back area, too.
Yeah,
Do you have a price for the stairs, how much that PO would be for?
I believe it was 27.
$2,700
Yeah,
plus minus.
yeah.
So, can we assume that it's not in this 1515 line item, or can that 2,700
No,
be
that
taken
does
out?
not include the stairs.
It does not,
No,
Because
the
that's
stairs were supposed to be done this year.
based on that purchase order, okay,
Exactly.
all right.
This is floors.
We were trying to do it in phases, and the
Right.
next worst thing is the floors.
Yeah, gotcha,
Yeah.
yeah, understood.
Do you remember, Mike, how much the floor estimate was?
Do you know the breakdown? I can tell you exactly how much it was. Okay, 15,000 for the floors, and then $450 to have our floors waxed. It's supposed to be done every year.
So 15,000 was to replace the floors.
All the tile floors.
Okay. And how much to have it? 400 to have it waxed?
450.
Oh, so that's what that amount is total.
Yeah.
So that doesn't even include the furniture that you're missing.
No, no.
When they
About the
install the
painting,
floor,
Mike.
does that include an initial waxing?
I'm sorry, what?
When they install the floor, does that include an initial finish on it?
No. Nope.
That's odd.
What
No,
about,
it didn't for this room either.
Huh.
Yeah, we had to have River City
So
cleaners
this
come
is
in.
entirely floors then? There's no other workstations or anything like that?
Yeah, that's our
Entirely
next,
floors.
highest thing.
Okay.
like, what did we say about the painting?
We were just gonna do that this year. We were supposed to.
So does the, I know when we did the floors in the main office and down here, that was a special item that was additional as far as, building maintenance. It wasn't actually put into the operating budget that year. So I'm wondering if this item actually should not be under building maintenance because it's a large capital type project. Whether this would be more like, regular maintenance type things, like the annual waxing of the floors or something like that. Like the annual maintenance of the floor versus
Mhm.
replacing the whole floor isn't really maintenance of the floor. It's
So what you're
like-
saying is like, we should have that be
Yeah.
450 because it would be the waxing,
I think so.
but 15,000 should go like on capital improvement.
Right.
That's an addition.
I mean, that's kind of looking at it, it seems like it's something that we would need to get bid out on for contract, for a service like that it seems like it would fall. I mean, to me, looking at it, that's kind of where I think it should go.
Wouldn't that be buildings and grounds?
It could go under buildings and grounds, or it could go in as an additional item.
Catherine, I thought we had to put this because it's police department, just like we have to with the town building, town office and the fire department. Doesn't it have to fall underneath their budget, not under buildings and grounds?
Buildings and grounds is outside, so
That's
that
what I
goes
thought.
along with public works and recreation, so we wouldn't put it there. I think because this was contained all in the police department, they put it in their budget. The other work, was in multiple locations,
Right.
but you could put it, if you want to move it to the capital, you can do that.
I mean, that's where
but
I mean, it's not a recurring cost, you're not gonna do it every year.
Yeah, it's not really there.
Right,
You would leave the 450 in
Yeah,
there,
leave the
but-
450.
right. So the maintenance cost would stay in there, because
Yeah.
that would be an annual cost.
Regardless, it gets done.
So, yeah, we're still approving
This
the
is not
floor
money
being
budget.
replaced, it's just being put in capital improvements instead of.
Well, we haven't done the capital improvements yet, though.
Well, yeah, but we're just.
The assumption being.
We're
Yeah.
requesting that
That's
that
just
would
what I was
be-
thinking of, I'm
Yeah.
concerned if we get to that point, well, we need to cut that 15 grand out of there, but that's not gonna happen.
I don't think you can do that because of the condition of the floor. You're gonna have to fix
It's
it.
No, I know, no, I understand that, I'm just talking about numbers only,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
You know how it happens sometimes where you need to cut something.
Yeah, look at our roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could-
Good point, kind of extreme, but good point.
They were cut by
You
ear.
could make the
Yeah,
case
they were-
that this
they were
could
cut
be
back when
against the
we
municipal
needed that
building
exchange.
as well, because it's
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
that. We're just trying to take on.
No, I understand that, and I agree with that, I just wanna make sure that we understand that if we do move to the capital improvement, we remember this and consider this seriously, because it's needed.
I think the problem is that it's a bigger project, and because it goes into, if you put it into an operating budget, and then you don't have it next year, it makes your operating budget kind of do this when you have stuff in there, versus
Yep.
when something like that is separated into the capital improvement plan or capital project, it makes the budget itself more stable, rather than seeing this up and down when you do
Agreed,
different.
I agree, I just wanna make sure that the
I completely agree, yeah.
the profile of it doesn't diminish it when we put on capital improvement, so
Right.
it's not hidden under everything else.
So do we want to put that as an item for the capital improvement plan when we get to that? We'll put it in that, or do we put it as an additional, as the end?
I would say it's a smaller capital. If you want it paid for with taxpayer dollars, which is what was happening here, we can put it into the regular capital budget, in the budget.
Okay, I think that makes more sense. It doesn't make sense to finance something like a small thing like that.
We'll get to that.
So the mechanics of doing that, we'll reduce this line to the 450, which would be the maintenance of the floors for the waxing. So we reduce.
So if we kept it, that line 1515, put it back down to the 2200 level, and move 13250 with the capital improvements,
What was no, we want to keep it at 450 because that's the estimated.
450, okay.
450 is the estimated waxing for the floors, so that'll be an annual maintenance cost for the building, and that's actual building maintenance. Did you have other items that you needed to put in there? You had mentioned painting.
Painting was in the 2021 budget.
Right. So that's
We haven't-
already expended and done and
It
ready.
hasn't got done, and it's not gonna get done by the end of the year.
But you have the funds for that, and that can be encumbered for that project.
Yeah, we can carry that over.
That can be
Yeah,
carried
we
over for
can lock that in
project.
with a PO, I would imagine, some kind of agreement, so that we can hold the price for X amount of time, that way we can expend that project based on 2021 budget dollars.
Did we put a PO in for that one too? I can't
We
remember.
haven't yet,
I
So
know
do
we,
you
because we
have,
hadn't decided how we were gonna do it.
yeah, I think the only one we had in for was the stairs.
Yeah.
do you have other maintenance that needs to be done in the building? Once the stairs are done and then the floors are done separately, you're gonna have the 450 for the waxing of the floors on an annual basis.
I think
What
we-
other annual costs are you gonna have for your building maintenance?
The only thing I would talk about maybe is the cleaning, because as far as I know, the cleaning lady, I don't know how that gets paid, if it's just for the whole town office, but maybe increasing that a little bit, because she's only allowed to spend, I guess, so many minutes in the police station, and it really needs more time to do it effectively.
Does that require another officer there while the cleaning lady is in that?
She has to be
area?
escorted.
That's part of the issue. We don't let somebody let her in and be there.
So is the cost for that building wide, or is it broken out from this office to that office, this section, that section? I assume it's town office maintenance.
It's building wide because she's cleaning everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's a contractual item that we have
Right,
in
right.
the admin building on a yearly basis,
So that's already covered by the
Right, and all I'm saying is maybe, however it's divided up, maybe we increase it overall for the whole town office so that she can spend more time in the entire office, including ours. Because when I've talked to her in the past, she's told me that she's only allowed to spend so many minutes in the police station. And I mean, sometimes it's pretty dirty in there, especially in the wintertime when you've got to sweep and, you know, really clean, you know what I mean?
So it
It's
sounds
really
like
just a mopping is all we get. Doesn't really get deep cleaned.
It sounds like an issue that we need to bring up with the contractor and the company that she works for as far as the detail level of the work that's
Yes,
being done.
and Kathy, new Kathy has taken the contractor and the supervisor through this entire building and spoken with them about what needs to be done.
She does.
Was
She
that
does.
recently? Kathy did that recently?
Yes, within the last month and a half.
Okay.
She does a good job. It's nothing against the worker. She does a very good job, I think. It's just, I don't think she's allocated enough time. It's probably the same in other parts of this building, not just the police station.
Well, you should hopefully see a difference. I assume that's why
So it
Kathy took the supervisor through.
So it doesn't sound like that's an item that gets put into your budget per se, so is there any other building maintenance that needs to go in here? We've got the full for the waxing, was there anything else that needs to be put in there?
Well, you know, in our pie in the sky additionals we had put in there for, you know, looking into to a new facility.
Well, additionals are another story altogether, we're not gonna talk about additionals tonight. As far as, nothing else?
Nothing for
nothing
what
else
you're
to
talking
adjust
about.
this. Okay,
You
so
think of
that'll,
any, Mike?
so if you wanna mark your books,
Next
1550 is
page
gonna go
was
down to 450 for building maintenance.
450?
And
we're
then
gonna work
the
on cubicles
13,000.
and furniture after that.
You mean
I'm
15?
sorry,
Yeah.
15,000 is,
Added to
gonna
J.
go to capital for, police for.
Well, it's not capital, isn't it just additional request?
It's gonna go
No,
to
we're
the
gonna put it in capital.
We'll put it in the capitals, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a small capitals that's in the budget.
All right, I got it.
Yeah, I'll add it in there.
And the intent is to pay that with tax dollars and
This
not,
one?
Yeah.
Correct.
So
We'll look
the
at all that. Yeah.
15,000 out of that line item,
Those
change
are
that
additional.
line item, and the bottom line is now 994,830, 994,830.
Yeah, yeah.
all right, other line items, counselors?
I have a question about, and this isn't changing the amount, I'm just curious, 6636, how much does the school reimburse us for that, Catherine?
So this is built upon having a full-time, you know, SRO in the schools, not splitting it up 2020, because by January, this should be resolved, I would hope. So there's a rate, the school wanted to pay only for 10 months, and they wanted just a monthly rate, so I had to figure out, you know, all the costs involved. And so it is more expensive because the rates for the pay went up, and some of the other items, workers' comp and everything.
Right, but how much is the school paying back of that 71,000?
It's a 71,971, that's the school.
So
section.
that's how much they're paying, where are his other 2 months or her
Yeah, the
should
other
we
2
get?
months is in the payroll part at the top.
105.
Oh, so that's up there, okay.
105 at the end, SRO officer, 2 months there.
So what we're seeing is, so we have that 71,971 in here, that's actually being covered by the school budget as a
Correct.
reimbursement.
Yes, it'll be in the revenue account.
Thank you.
What-
For police.
Why do we, okay, so I'm not an accountant. So we have $72,000 in there that would be in charge to this budget, yet the school district has $72,000 that they're being charged in their budget to pay here. why isn't one a positive, one a negative? Why is this showing being charged against this budget, and they're showing the same thing charged against their budget?
All right, so let's look at the town budget first. This is the expense budget, so we're going to pay this money out. In the town's revenue budget, we have this figure with the money coming in. So that takes care of the town budget, netting it out to zero, and then the actual cost for the service is in the school budget.
We're not looking at the revenue, we're only looking at our expenses.
Yeah, this is just.
Understood. Why?
I had so much confusion with that too, Mike, which is why I
So
asked
I'm
the
in very
question.
good company. Thank you.
Which is why I asked the question, because the revenue budget will show it, and then in the end, it zeroes out, so it doesn't affect the tax rate.
Yeah, we
Hence
have
why I wasn't in the company.
yeah, we
I
have
have
a
a lot-
number of those accounts. The first park is another one.
Okay, all right.
I guess I still don't understand why it's in the police budget.
Because
it's a police officer.
It's a police, has to be a police officer under the jurisdiction of the police department.
We pay out, the town has an expense associated with the SRO position. The town is paying out the entire amount. The 71,
Yeah, I get you.
971 is what we get back from the school. And it makes it pretty tidy to say, okay, the expense for it is right there, and then we have a revenue line that matches that. So it's not, accountiness go into another line that doesn't have the full amount.
If you see in line 01-05, it calls out SRO officer for 2 months.
That's the portion we actually.
That's
pay out.
what this budget covers. The other 10 months is what the SAD 53 covers. And that's where that line item comes in.
What was it, Catherine, was it 80-20? Is that what the split was when it was gonna be a regular year?
Well, it's 10 months.
They wanted it split out by the month, and they agreed to,
Right.
as you know, they wanted that changed and not the way that we had it previously. So 10 months now is for the school and 2 months is for the police.
Right, no, I understand, I was just trying to say it so you'd understand it maybe a little easier. How, in a normal year, how it would work.
Our net cost is 2 months of employment for that officer.
Correct, in the summer.
Yeah, and this
Except for right now, is different because he's working only
Correct.
20 hours at the school, so there's more of a cost to the town to be permanent patrol.
I get you now. Thank you.
But fingers crossed, we won't have the same issue going forward.
The perfect world.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Brent.
What's caused the overtime to go up, has gone up by at least 25,000 next year? You budgeted 25,000 more for overtime next year.
For reserve officers and to fill shifts. If we don't have we still haven't hired our third officer back yet.
Right, but if you're budgeting 508,000 for all the officers that you have, or gonna have.
Yeah.
It's an increase of 80.
Huh?
It's an increase of 80.
Right, and yet you're still budgeting for overtime.
Right.
So you're gonna have full officers and yet still want more overtime.
Right, we have to cover vacations, investigations, what else do we have in there, Mike?
The bulk of this was covering for people that were at the academy.
Right,
Because you gotta
plus,
fill that shift when they go for 18 weeks.
plus the academy, correct.
Yeah.
And how many people will be at the academy next year?
Well, we're gonna have one in there.
One at least, yeah.
Yeah, one at least. So that's when we talked about hiring can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
When we talked about in the hiring the full-time officer compared to the part-time officer, I told you with the hiring a full-time certified officer, it was gonna be a lot cheaper than hiring a part-time officer. We first had said it was gonna cost around $40-something thousand, when you included the overtime to backfill the officer who went to the academy, but after we did some checking, it came out to the mid-70s,
Yeah,
high 70s, to when you included everything, salary, and that's if that depends on when they go to the academy. So just to give you an example, we just hired Officer Kettle 2 months ago, approximately 2 months ago. He probably won't go to the academy till August. So that means when he finally goes to the academy, we're going to have to backfill his position with overtime, because by that time he'll be working by himself. Remember, I told you at the last meeting, he's not working by himself now, he's training. But by that point, he will be in the rotation, and by the contract, we have to backfill that with overtime. Then you have vacations, you have investigations that we have to do that we haven't been working on, that those were the reasons for the increase.
Pete, when they're in the academy, we pay their salary still, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we have to pay the fee for them to go to the academy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what that $3,000 is?
Yeah, it's around there.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
3,000.
Another expense you have, went up significant, is uniforms.
Yeah, well, so, right, and uniforms are expensive, the prices have gone up, but we've been down officers, plus we're still down part-time officers we're trying to backfill, so the uniforms are expensive.
Yeah, and the uniforms for the academy, because
then
they have a special list of equipment that they have to have.
They have a shopping list, Brent, when they get out there, they have to, I can't remember how much it is, but it comes out to $2 or $3 grand.
It was about $3,000,
Yeah.
when we ordered everything for Austin.
I mean, there's some things that we bought that we'll be able to use again, as an example, the laptop.
Yeah.
He has to go down with a laptop, we'll be able to use that again. But all of the other stuff, it's expensive.
So laptop would show up underneath that, where you have purchase and rentals, because that went up by $7 grand, more or less. It's 2015.
What's the number on that, Brian?
2015, but I don't, well,
2015 is,
the equipment
no
rental.
change.
Equipment rental.
Yeah, but the total for that change is, about $7 grand more.
Okay.
I think you're looking at the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this,
Looking at equipment purchasing, 2005, right?
The contractual is 2005. 2015 is equipment, which is $1,500.
yeah.
2005 has gone up by roughly, we'll say 10 grand, 3-4 grand.
$3,400.
3,000-4,000. Is that what you're buying? Must be buying the laptop and stuff
Yeah.
on that.
2005, he's got pistols, lights and holsters, tasers.
So the big change on this one was bringing the IMC software cost over from the communications budget.
That was the equipment line item, 20-05. Was that one?
No, that was the 2505, no, 2505 that went up by.
Yeah, that was, 23,000 increase. What was that again, please? I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
That's the comm budget.
Yeah, that was from the comm budget,
Oh, okay.
working it in. The 2005,
Yeah. That was just up. It's about 3,000.
yeah, we actually went down. We went from 13,000 this year to 10,000 next year.
Oh, we have it on our line as
16,000.
16,474.
Oh,
So is that supposed to be 10, not 16?
I believe so.
Oh,
I have 10,636.
Where are you?
20-05 equipment purchase.
20-05, you have 10,636.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have
Not
16,474.
okay.
Okay, that's great. There we go.
Yeah, because some of these we actually went down.
Mike, was that contractual or?
That was equipment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you've got listed pistols, lights and holsters, 2 tasers, annual contract,
Radar.
contract, radar.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
pistols, magazines, reserve.
So that.
Lights and holsters,
So that
tasers,
brings
and
it
no
down,
contract.
So, if you wouldn't mind, we go back to 25-05.
Yeah.
He said that was the communications?
Yeah, the big thing that bumped us up was bringing the IMC software over from communications.
That's the police communication systems, Mike. You know, where our police reports go into.
But it's a $23,000 increase.
Well, that used to
It
be on
used
the
to be.
communications budget, Mike, and we took the communications budget and brought it into the police department budget because it was theirs anyway. So that's what that
Okay,
increase is.
wherever it lies, what, so
It's no longer in communications, it's now in police. That's why you're seeing the increase there.
It was 23,000 in
Okay,
communication, they zeroed it up.
Yeah.
They moved it over.
hence why I was an engineer, not an accountant. Again,
The overall
thank you.
cost, the overall cost didn't change, it's just in a different department.
Gotcha.
There's
All
no
right.
communications department anymore, it's just entirely police.
Roger that. One more, if I may.
Sure.
30-15 telephones,
30-15.
went from 0 to 2,600.
That's also the communication one.
That's part of communications also? Okay.
They added on cell phones, an increased cell phone service for the officers was added on. And so that was moved from the
I'm
communication
missing it.
into the police department.
Okay.
And just, can I put an attaboy on that? We're looking into something now where we might be able to eliminate part of that cell phone cost with our body cameras, watch guard system that we've got a grant for. We're looking into something with Chief Bell that might be more effective and efficient and save us money. We have another year to execute that grant. Well, there's 2 grants. We have another year to execute the first grant, and so we have plenty of time to do what we might be able to do, which is basically using a cell phone that has a special software in it, and it allows us to have connectivity. So if I'm at a barricade situation or something, and I want to live stream back to you, to Brent, or to whoever, so you know what's going on. We have the ability to do that. Has officer safety features that the WatchGuard system doesn't have, and we could eliminate the cell phones that we have.
Nice.
We'll still have to pay a fee, but and we can use part of the grant money to do it. To offset it the first couple of years anyways.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And it uses the cloud for storage. We were gonna have to buy our own server and have everything backed up onto there every day. And that was 20,000.
And we actually bought a server, and they had misquoted us and told us the server that we ended up buying or might purchase, the specs wasn't large enough.
Yeah.
So we ended up returning it just in the last few weeks. And so that's another expense for this system, like Mike said. This has a cloud-based server, storage, however you say it.
Yeah, that's all good, too.
So that'd be like a monthly or yearly contract?
Yearly.
Or-
Probably yearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. We look forward to it.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat system.
So if I'm checking my math here correctly, with the adjustment of the corrected number for 20-05 plus moving the 15,000, we're now at 988,992. Does that match other people's?
988,992.
Yep.
So it's the 15,000 and what else was the?
15,000 going to capital improvement, and 20-05 was actually supposed to be 10,636 instead of 16,474, which was a difference of 5,838.
So are we absolutely sure on that? Because the budget I was given, I checked, has 16,474 for that line, 20-05. So if you're absolutely sure, we'll reduce it, but what I was given was 16,474.
Was it itemized, Catherine?
No.
Yeah, I have the itemized that I used to put together the budget.
What do you have on your list, Mike? Is it the same as what's listed here?
Yeah,
Under
so,
equipment?
so for the Pistols magazines, for the reserves, I have 5,936. For lights and holsters, I have 3,200. And for tasers, 2 tasers, I have 1,500.
1,636.
Yeah.
That's the annual contract and the radar contract?
Yeah, that, line item 20-05.
Yeah, is there
Right, but he
anything-
didn't mention those two things.
Yeah, is there anything for the radar?
I didn't think we needed any radar next
I
year.
thought we put, did we put that under contractual?
That would make sense considering.
Yeah,
it's a
here's
contract.
radar times
Yeah,
3.
right,
Yeah, it's on the
It
contract.
doesn't make sense to have it on equipment if it's a
Right.
contract.
So,
Yeah, it's broken out.
Mike, I just wanted to point out one thing. How much did we've only got one set of books here, but what did we put down for the body carriers, the outer carriers,
So the vests?
the vests?
Yeah.
So I want to bring that up.
That's under
Um,
uniforms.
Okay, so there's what Brent was talking about. Okay, with those outer carriers, these are the outer carriers that you know, most of us have all the weight on our belt, right? The gun, everything that we carry these days. The outer carrier, you see a lot of police departments now, they have the vest on the outside. It puts a lot of the stuff that's on the belt up on the chest, so it doesn't put it all up there, but it kind of balances a little bit. So you don't see people like me who are bending over all the time because their hips hurt and they have injuries. It causes a lot of problems like that. But with this COVID money, going back to the COVID money, we might be able to purchase all of those for the whole department 100% with that money.
Yeah.
I've talked to Bernard about what can we use the money for. I still don't really know. But one of the things he did tell me was that we could use that money to purchase those vests, the outer carriers. So that might be a big expense that we'll knock off for that.
That's because it's PPE, right?
Yeah, you
Yes.
don't get more PPE than bulletproof vests.
All right,
And-
I'll add
and-
that to
and-
my health,
And the uniforms that go with it that are special to wear under it. You know, they're more like a golf shirt, you know, long sleeve and a short sleeve, as opposed to a regular uniform that's got badges all over it, because you wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have an itemized list there for your items under 0535?
0535 for uniforms? Yeah.
For everything you have in that 20,000?
Yes, I do.
Where is it?
So I had 6 bulletproof vests for 7,998.
Is that each?
No, that's for the 6.
Okay.
The academy program gear I had at 3,500 for one person. I had total outfitting of 2 new full-time officers at 7,000, and then general needs at 2,000.
20,498.
Two officers require $3,500 worth of uniforms?
If they're coming in with nothing, yes.
So Officer Kettle was already working for the department, so we shouldn't have had to buy more uniforms.
He had one pair of pants and one shirt.
Yeah, so the reserves have 1 set,
Yeah.
and then what do we get, 3 sets for everybody else?
Didn't that include safety vest too, bulletproof vest, anything else like that?
No,
No,
that
no.
should be separate. That
That's
was a
different.
separate item there.
And that's like what I'm talking about with the outer carrier / vest.
Gotcha.
We might be able to purchase all of that for the whole department. Because the bulletproof vests have a shelf life of about 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Or,
It is fine.
or one use.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the uniforms, that's so many changes per year? Or-
Oh,
So how many sets of uniforms that come with these officers?
we give them 3. You get 3 or 4.
And it's 3 long sleeve shirts, 3 short sleeve shirts,
Right.
3 sets of pants.
But we'll only have 1. The reserves usually, they only have 1. Unless they get hand-me-downs from other people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're talking your winter coats. And, I mean, it's
Coats, hats.
it really adds up quick.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have the special boots too, right? Or
Yeah.
shoes or,
Yeah, and most officers need a new pair of shoes every year. Um, you know,
So up at training, 525.
Yeah.
In 2021, it was budgeted for $8,000, and now it's $12,604. Is that because we have an officer going to the academy? You said it's about how much for the academy?
Yeah, so for one officer to go to the academy, that was $3,000. That was not in this year's budget. The phase 1 and 2 training, I set for 3 people to go through that, figuring 2 reserves and maybe a full-timer would all have to go through that. We had $700 this year, and I increased that to $2,100 next year. Qualifications actually went down from $1,750 to $1,350. Subscriptions stayed the same at $350. Gym membership stayed the same at $300, and that's contractual. Durgo safety, we went up $250 from $4,750 to $5,000. And then
That's
specialized training.
that's the online training, Heather.
Right, it's
Yeah.
not reflected in the budget this year though. Like on our budget, it's not reflected in that, so it's 5,000 even.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, you're showing 4380 on that
yeah, that was Durgo's
in the breakdown.
quote. And then specialized training, certifications for SRO, for ACO, whatnot, was at $354.
354.
Yeah. So
does that
altogether,
total
that
match our total? What's your total?
my total is 12,604.
Oh, okay, so it's still the same total.
Yeah, and last year we had 8,000. So most of that was the academy we're accounting for. We
So
didn't
in
account for it this year.
2020, we had academy funds budgeted that weren't used because the academy was closed. And then we had one officer go to the academy this year in 2021. We're anticipating one officer to go to the academy next year, and that would be Kettle.
Unless they hire another, then it would be 2. Right?
Well, we hired 2 more officers and they're green pins, which are referred to as, full-time certified officers referred to as a blue pin. And a green pin is someone who's not, they have to go to the academy. So we'd be probably short in that line item, or we'd have to offset it with our total budget.
Yeah, we're trying
Well,
not
we
to
could.
do that.
Right.
Catherine,
So-
we can carry over the training amount they didn't use.
If we have specific items that were not done that we anticipate we're promising will be done next year, then yes, you can do a carry forward.
Yeah,
And we
okay.
would, then that would definitely be something we'd want to do. Because I didn't think of the 2 additional officers when I was doing this, and Mike and I were going through this back in August.
Mhm.
You know,
So that would, if we carry that over with the intention of having it available for additional academy enrollment, then that would buffer for next year, because it's already been allocated for this year.
yeah, unless we get lucky and we can get a full-time certified officer, then it's
Yeah.
not an issue.
That'd be the best.
Okay.
That actually saves us money in the long run.
It'll save the town a ton of money if we get a certified officer
So-
compared to the part-time.
So since we're going backwards through the budget, let's keep going up as we go here. Workman's comp, you got hit by an increase on workman's comp as well, which is not something we have control over directly. A little bit for unemployment. Health insurance went down from 2021. Or this was our estimate in 2021 that I'm looking at.
Yeah, this is the estimate for 2021.
Okay. And then FICA is a little bit more because there's more payroll. Part-time employment, we already talked about that. I had a question here under part-time employment. It also lists $3,000 for the CAP program. While it's a worthwhile program, I'd like to pull that line item, that amount out of that line because we don't have enough officers to be covering shifts, as you've been saying. So why would we be funding that program when we don't have staff to be running it?
Well, we do, I don't agree on that. I think it's something that we should really look at, and I've asked Mike Cray to come tonight, but just to kind of give you a high-level overview, originally we had that in there. It wasn't, I know it wasn't used for a couple of years because of different issues going on with the former SRO program. We had COVID issues last year when we didn't have an SRO in the position, but now we do have an SRO in the position, and that's where the coordination of that program would come from. It would come from the SRO, and then other departments, for example, Sheriff Lancaster had told me when we had talked about this originally that he would jump all over this and help us out. So we would get manpower from other agencies to help us. It has a lot of benefits. It engages kids to keep them off the street, some of them who are going down the wrong path. This is a program that I believe can get down to about age 12 years old, approximately. I think it's 12 years old. It's kind of like Boy Scouts or something like that most of us have been in, Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. But so it's tied to the Boy Scouts of America program. So the kids that go into this, a lot of them are in this because they look at law enforcement as a career. I look at it as a way to help the community and the kids in our community, and also it's a way to help recruit. Mike will tell you that other departments have used this to hire reserve officers after they're in the cadet program, and then they become full-time officers. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, that program a long time ago, and Mike, I'm sure you can remember, and Tim, you can remember, back when we first did this, it wasn't an organized setup, but when Spencer was here, and I'm sure most of you can remember Spencer Haley, Spencer initiated that along with Vernon, and we had about 8 or 9 people that get involved in it, and they're still here. There was Mike Havey, there was Dean Billings, there was Darryl Whitley, Ricky Partridge, Bob McFetrich, who was still working down with Rusty, and then Vernon's son, Bobby Williams, who went on to be law enforcement officers.
He was a colonel of the state police.
He ended up being the colonel of the state police. So the benefits of that is really beneficial, and it's not just giving them out later on down the road as other officers. We can utilize some of those kids, and there's some, and I've been talking with Colonel Wiley after the school. We can utilize some of those kids. He's got a JROTC or an ROTC program started. So we kind of initiate some of those kids in this program. And eventually we could use them, say we ever get back to like the Egg Festival. We could use them for parking attendants. We could use them in different places, and it would save a little money where you wouldn't have to use a full-time or a reserve officer.
Tell them about Scarborough, Mike.
A what? Yeah, and when I was here before, when we first started this SRO program, excuse for the poor voice, when we first started that, Chief had mentioned that Scarborough had that operating down there, and I said, hey, that's a great idea, let's see what we can do. So we made a trip down, we went through their program down there, they set us all up with, I still got it, all the materials to do it with, how to get it functioning and get it up and working, and everything that went along with it. We was in the process of doing that, and then things kind of went south a little bit. Mike Cody took over as the SRO, and unfortunately Mike had to leave, so it didn't get carried on. And with COVID, and then I had an illness, and so it just got dropped. So the money that was initiated for that didn't get utilized, unfortunately. But that now, again, with Colonel Wiley involvement, the schools are involved. I've got half a dozen kids right now at Warsaw that we could put into that program tomorrow morning. Two of them, actually, to tell you the truth, really could use a program like that. They're kids that are sitting there like this. And with a little bit of guidance and support with a program like that, you take them from sitting here going this way to turning them up, and they're doing the right thing. So it's a worthwhile program, and for $2,000 or $3,000, it'd be very beneficial putting back into that budget. It would be very, very helpful. And like I said, it's just going to enhance capabilities. You can see what a hard job we got hiring people now. It will enhance that capability. Those guys that I've talked about, a lot of them, Mike and Dean, they're working for the town, maybe not in the police department, but they're town employees. So they've been here, probably, Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, Dean must be about the longest tenured employee in the town right now, isn't he?
He and Mike are
Yeah,
two of the several.
Yeah, they've been here a long time. So, the benefits of the program weren't just for law enforcement, it also helped, recruiting stuff for the town. So it's a beneficial program. I think it really needed. I know when Chief had mentioned getting it back going, I was excited about it, but kind of holding off. We didn't know what was going to happen with the budget. So, but if we get it back in the budget, it's a go. We'll get it done. Colonel Wiley and I will grab onto it and go with it.
And the kids.
I'm impressed you remember all those names.
I had to write them down.
The only other thing I wanted to throw in is the kids that join it are not just restricted to Pittsfield. They can, in the model that we looked at Scarborough, the kids come from, probably the majority come from Scarborough, but they come from all over the greater Portland area. And the same thing that we would do up here. So that's why Sheriff Lancaster was interested in it. And, I know other chiefs would probably be interested in it as far as helping us with training and things like, that they do. If you went down and you saw the program in Scarborough, you'd be amazed.
So Catherine, did we remove this from the budget last year because of COVID?
We didn't remove it, it's still in there.
So it's still in there, so
listed.
could we take that $3,000 from 2021 and push it into 2022, and then, since it was already reserved for that cost?
You could do that if you want as a carry forward, yeah.
Then we're kind of canceling out 2022, but we're using 2021's money because it couldn't be done because of COVID.
That would be correct. You also have it in your 2022 budget.
Right, but Heather's making the suggestion we remove it, but because we didn't have the officers to do it. Well, we didn't in 2021, but the money was there, so we just moved that money from 2021 to 2022, and then we're canceling it without canceling it.
You could use it as a carry forward if you wanted to.
So how would we show that in the budget? Would we keep that as a line item showing that cost and just make a side note? We're not going to count this in the increase in taxes, we're going to take it from one. How do we do that?
Yeah, once we get to December and everybody's budgets are being spent, we have an idea of what is not going to be done during the year that can be carried forward. And then the council will vote on the carry forward funds, which will have a list. And the police department's done this before.
And then the budget will be adjusted.
Correct.
Hence, and then the tax bills as required from that final revised budget.
For this particular item, $3,000 less would be raised in tax dollars. Yes.
So basically, we're saying that it would be removed from the 2022 budget because we're gonna pay for it with 2021 funds.
Right.
We're saying, yes, you can have the program, but we're not gonna fund it in 2022. It's gonna be funded in 2021, carried into 2022.
But we want to make sure that it stays on the budget, as in they can continue it in 2023.
Yeah. Right.
So
I
maybe
guess
not giving them the $3,000 in 2022, but allowing them to keep it on the list
that's what I was going to mention.
for 2023.
That's what I was going to mention. We can't make it
So
dissipate
just
from here. So actually, if I may while I still have my train of thought, you had mentioned it's gonna be removed from this budget, but the money's carried forward. It actually is gonna stay in this budget as that same line item, and then when we do the carry forward, will we continue through that? We would agree at that time to carry forward that X amount of money, to 3,000 and some change, whatever it is. So then that would offset the new revised budget, and that's what we would vote on. That's what, is that correct?
All right, if we think we're going, if this is.
You know what I'm trying to say?
If you want this to be a
No.
carry forward,
Sorry.
yeah, if you want this to be a carry forward, then I'm making a carry forward list now. So we would take this out of the budget now and then vote on the carry forward in December, and you'll be voting on the revised budget in December too.
Yeah.
I don't wanna take it out of the budget at all.
No, neither do I.
Yeah.
I don't want it to get missed, just like the other item.
Yeah, and then in 2 months, when we go to vote on stuff that gets carried forward, and for some reason it gets dropped because all this other stuff's getting carried.
Right, we leave it
It
in
should
there.
stay in
so,
there, and it
yeah.
should stay in there with $3,000 or whatever it is.
Yep.
I mean.
It's too good to risk.
Right, yeah,
having it.
that's what I'm saying.
But-
I mean, just listen to that.
And I know it's not really my money, but it's only $3,000
And
for what we get for a benefit.
Right.
Because I know almost everybody that Mike had mentioned.
If Mike can use the $3,000 between now and December, go ahead and use it, and then we'll have $3 more come January 1st.
I agree.
Start it tomorrow.
So $3,000 is the full allotment for an entire year. Is it responsible to say go spend it
Well,
all in 6 weeks?
I was exaggerating, obviously, but
Well,
hey, you gotta get it started, so start it tomorrow, like he said he could.
I'm not arguing against the effectiveness or the social aspect of the program and the benefits to the community. I'm looking at the entire budget and where can we trim when
Not there.
everything seems like a good idea. Everything's a good idea, you know, but at some point you need to make hard decisions about what's going to be in the budget in 2022. So if you want to keep everything that's in there, something has to give.
Well, we just dropped $15,000 on floors, and we dropped
We did it, we moved
$6,000.
it to CIP, we said we're going to still spend the money.
Well, you
but
dropped-
it's
Well, we
CIP.
did lose $5,800 in a miscommunication in the budget.
Right.
There's your $3,000.
There you go.
Yeah.
No,
Thank you.
because the $3,000 is still in there.
No,
No.
I'm saying that we've saved $5,800, you want to remove it, but we don't need to because we just cut $5,800 because of a
Right.
miscommunication.
We haven't
Of
saved
all of the programs that we
$5,800.
could cut, this is not one
Yeah.
that I'm willing to cut.
Me neither.
If we want to find somewhere else to cut $3,000, okay, let's do that, but not at the detriment of this program.
Well, I think
So
we
this program actually doesn't exist yet. So
Right.
it's not something that's in play now.
But it is a program that did exist and benefited our community.
40 years
And
ago.
I remember some of the people who were involved in that because of my parents knowing and growing up with those people. This is a program we want back. I don't know if you've noticed, but crime is going up in our young group. And if this program can make that crime turn around, I'm on it. I'm so mad that we don't have DARE anymore. Let's have this take it over. I'm
I
serious.
agree.
I will not
I
vote
say
against
leave
this.
it right there.
Yeah.
Leave it right there.
All right, there we go.
You can find $3,000 somewhere else. I wouldn't do it there.
All right, let's keep going up. That was part-time employment, holiday overtime, already addressed that with the extra that you had put in there, Mike, was for, remind me what it was for, it was $25,000 difference.
That's where we cut the $3,000, right there. We're gonna make that $57,000. Can you agree with that, Mike and Pete?
But we don't need to.
What are you talking about? I wasn't following.
No, for the $3,000 that we were
Yeah.
looking to cut for the cadet program,
Yeah.
we cut it from the overtime,
Yeah.
because that's an estimated amount anyway.
I thought we already cut it from that other item that was 16,000 that we.
Well, we
reduced
had
to
that
10.
$5,000, but that, she was looking to cut and trim another $3,000, we can do that there. That would be the compromise. Can we agree? I don't want to lose that
Okay with that?
cadet program.
Doesn't need to come out.
They want to cut. the overtime by $3,000 to pay for the cadet program.
How finite is that $60,000? Is that down to the last minute, or are you taking a rough approximation?
Can you cut it half?
No, I guess, is $3,000 taken off that going to be detrimental to that line item,
So
01-10?
instead of 64, it'd be 61.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can try it.
Instead of 60, it's gonna be 57.
I think we can try it. You know?
Your numbers and these numbers ain't matching.
What do you
Yeah,
have
we
for
have
numbers
60,000
on
for
line
that.
1-10?
We're showing 60,000 on ours, Mike.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What you got? What's your overtime say?
64K.
Oh.
As in 60. We trim 4.
So are we trimming
Oh, so
4?
we already
Oh, so
trimmed
you're at
seven?
57.
No,
No,
So
but-
we've already trimmed $4,000
Yeah,
from that apparently.
Imagine.
Never mind, let's move on.
Well, no, I'd
no, let's
like to
figure this out.
understand what the difference is here and why your numbers are different. Do you have a copy of the budget sheet?
I have a copy of my worksheet where I have everything itemized. I was assuming that it matched what you guys were looking at.
Mike?
Yeah.
Our
Thank you.
line item is, 1-10 is $60,000 for holiday, vacation, sick leave, egg festival, drills, call-outs, patrol, DD, and investigations. It's an increase, I believe Mike pointed out, of $25,000 from last year. It was only $35,000.
Yeah. I had it at 64,000.
I think you were talking earlier about backfilling because of officers attending the academy.
That was the big add here, was the add overtime for the academy. That's where all the increase came from on this one.
So is the actual number 64,000 or is it 60,000?
64, wasn't it?
64, yeah.
What do you have for an overall budget, Mike?
Overall budget,
Yeah, bottom line.
992, 810, and 80 cents.
So put,
Well,
we had
then-
to put the correct amount for the updated payroll because we had the increases in the contract.
All right.
And we had increases in the health insurance and the workers' comp.
And-
And then once you change your payroll amounts, then your social security changes. And so that made it come up to $1,009,830, but you've moved the $15,000 and made a couple of other changes.
But this is not the first line item that didn't match and had nothing to do with any kind of adjustments.
Well, the other one was,
Because this line item for overtime, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to tell you the point. This line item of overtime, that's not based on anything you just mentioned, Catherine. It's not adjusted. That's a number that Chief and Mike had come up with. He's saying 64, but you have in here 60.
I was told
That's
to
a s-
use 60 for that.
By who?
And for the 2005 equipment, I was told to use 16,474.
So by who though? I mean, the paper that Mike has, that's the paper that you, I assume, you had gotten at 60.
I don't have that paper now.
Well, where did you get the numbers from?
The police chief.
On a piece of paper?
Is there an email?
Or was it verbal? I'm trying to find out, it's $4,000 difference, and that's not the first line item in the police department budget. That's
There are a few that
been
don't.
discrepant from what Mike is showing in his worksheets to what you have on here.
Well, these are figures I was given, and on the other items that,
Do you-
like unemployment, we have to use the correct figure, health insurance, we have to use.
No, I understand that, but let's talk about the line 01-10. Where's the paperwork that you used that? Do you have that?
I was told to use the 60.
No, I heard you say that before, but do you have the documentation that you used, the paper that had that information on it? I mean, you didn't get this verbally.
I'll have to go pull it out.
Okay, I'm concerned
All the
because
departments give us the budget.
we don't have real numbers we can work with here. Because
Well, you
So
do have
let's,
real
let's
numbers.
work with what we got here.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
does this number need to be 64,000?
I did add what we calculated would be the overtime to cover for someone going to the academy, and that's what I came up with, the 64.
So you were saying that this needs to be 64,000.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to go line by line.
Amanda, are you still good with taking 3,000 out of that?
Well, I was thinking that would be the way to cover it, but if that's not going to allow them to cover their shifts, then that's not a good.
Question, Mike.
Well, this is where the hard.
You were just asked by Jason what your bottom line was. What was the bottom line budget that you gave to the town manager? Because it was less than the 1,009,000.
Yeah, it was 992, 810, and 80 cents.
I think what I'd like to know is what their budget looked like without the personnel services, without the part-time stuff, the FICA, the health insurance, unemployment, the stuff that we can't control no matter what, because that's where we're missing stuff. So where his items and our items don't match, those ones won't match because those were all estimates and Catherine had to make those adjustments.
So we've pretty much gone backwards, going
We've done
item
the
by
whole
item
budget.
through the whole budget. And we've identified places all along the way where we've made adjustments. And that's what this meeting is all about.
Right,
To
but like
make
we
sure
didn't
to
do,
have accurate numbers going into actually setting the budget to public hearing.
but we didn't do gasoline, we didn't do motor vehicle maintenance, we didn't do equipment non-vehicle maintenance. But those are the, like, I wanna make sure that every line item we
So
have is
gasoline
correct.
didn't change.
Well, according to that.
According to what we
according to
have,
Mike's got.
what I'm asking is, did it
Okay.
change on there?
What I would suggest, let me jump right in. What I suggest that we go, if Mike has the numbers available, we can start from the beginning and just go down these lists. Okay, we have 508, 105 for the first one. What do you have? Can we do that? Then we know what the numbers are gonna be that we should be going by. And then we can start looking at, let's take 3,000 out this one, then we start making the adjustments, if we deem necessary.
So all of the staff do not do the personnel costs. They don't put together what the payrolls are, the overtime, the part-time employment, the FICA, the health insurance, unemployment, workers' comp. But I did use the figures, that we were given.
Yeah, that's.
Well, that, I understand, but that's why we're gonna ask Mike, I assume, Heather. That's why we're gonna ask Mike to go through what he has for numbers, because I'm concerned about line 01-10, because that's a number that's not adjusted by any formula. That's a number that Chief and Mike will work on and give. That's the number they have. That has no FICA or COLA or any kind of federal or Maine state tax adjustment. That's the number. But Michael's showing 64, but yeah, we're showing 60 here. That's a significant difference.
So we know that-
So I think we need to go through and check every line item on it. It'll take 5 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, if that's okay, Heather, I think we should, because we're now comparing apples to whatever.
So we have, let's leave the personnel, line 1005, because that's not something that Mike would have specifics on because it's
Right.
contractual.
Right, understood.
So the overtime is where we're at now. This is where we're already at. Mike, you said you have $64,000.
Yes.
Right?
64.
115, 31050.
30 even.
So that's 30,000.
But that would have been one that would have had to be adjusted, correct, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay, so
So
that one.
that has an adjustment in it, because, so basically everything above travel has all adjustments made because they're all dependent on salary. So we should really start at 05.
0520.
Okay, so I have
For
2,000.
Okay, yep.
2,000,
0525, I have 12,604.
yep,
530.
0530, I have 2,000.
yep,
0535, I have 20,498.
Yep, we already went through that one.
1005, I have 7,750.
Yep,
1015, I have 12,000.
yep,
1505, I have 10,000.
yep.
1510, I have 3,500.
Yep.
1515, I have
We already adjusted.
450
that one.
now.
Yeah, 450 now, right?
2005, I have 10,636.
Okay, that's different than what you told us before.
Yeah, that's the one that we already
That's
went through.
That's the one we already did, the 10,636.
Right, but he said it was 10,000 and then added it up later and it was different. Okay, so adjust your books to 10,636.
That's what he had given us for
Yeah.
the cost before.
Yeah. And then 2010, I have 2,850.
Yep,
2015, I have 1,500.
yep.
25.5, I have 30,416.
2505, that's not what we talked about
Yeah.
earlier. You've got the
25-05 is
communications budget in there.
30416.
Yep.
Okay, we had 27,776 before.
We had 27,776 and then we made an adjustment. The communications budget, so it was $4,500 in 2021 and we added in the communications budget. So it should be a total of 27,776, Mike.
They also moved in, he had said before, the radar contracts, and I wonder if that's where the, from equipment to contractual. So that's
Yeah,
probably
I've
where it
got
is.
27,776.
So can we, do you
I
have
don't
the
know where
line
that
items
came
for that
from.
one, Mike?
Sure, so that one, the IMC software and maintenance fees was 3,500. The IMC software itself was 7,739. And that is from the communications budget, like we already spoke about. Fire extinguishers, we added 4 more ones for the cruisers, that's 390. Reference books is 450. Radar times 3 is 9,637. Dirigo safety is 3,675. Liability insurance for chief and the reserves is 1,800. Other is 585. And then Gmail accounts is 2,640.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
3,460.
You have Dirigo Safety Powered EMS listed here, and then up under line 0525, you have Dirigo Safety Powered, you said that was $5,000. So it's in the budget twice, or is this two separate programs?
Where was the other place you saw it?
0525. You said that it was $5,000 for the Dirigo Safety under trainings and conferences, because the amount in the book was incorrect. It was carried over as 4,380, and you said it was increased to 5.
It's two separate services from Dirigo.
So we're paying
One is the
$2,600, almost $8,700 a year.
Policies.
Yeah, one is for help with the policies, and the other one is for training.
$8,700 a year. If I remember that when we put this program into place, it was only about $4,000 a year. We had the contract that was.
Yeah, the Dirigo on this one for the help on the policies is 3,675. And then the other one for the training,
And that's for yearly updates, or is
the
that a
other one
one
was
time?
training was 5,000.
I think it was 3,000 a year or something like that.
How much do your policies change each year?
They keep them up to date. That's what their service is.
Yeah.
Like, how many updates are they making though? Like, are you talking like state laws that need to be updated and incorporated into our policies?
We just had a couple that were updated for that reason. We have a book this thick that we're updating all the policies because they weren't updated for years.
But this is the third year in this contract for this?
Mhm.
So we
Is
spent
it?
almost $10,000 over a
think so.
3-year period of time. update policies.
Yeah, I think it was 3 years. That was the original, I don't want to say contract, but original quote. Yeah.
So now
Did we
this
sign
is
a
the end
contract
of
with
the
them for
third-
this amount?
I'm
No.
sorry, Amanda, what?
I was asking, did we sign a contract for this amount?
Did we just send them 1,500?
No, Amanda, we didn't.
Okay.
Right.
Actually, my big
I think
question
we
is
voted
less
twice.
about updating
We
the
voted
policies
twice.
and more about what are we spending $2,600 on Gmail for?
That's what the business account was. I think that came up during the last meeting or the finance meeting.
It did, and you were gonna check a little bit more on that, because normally we don't pay anything for Gmail.
No, we do. We don't get it. We don't get it for free.
Yeah, personal accounts you get for free, but for business, they charge you.
So who has email accounts under Gmail that we're getting charged for?
All the
Everybody.
officers and the reserves.
So have we applied for the nonprofit status with them? Because we're not a business.
No, I don't know.
Why do we not have it through the town email anyway? Because councils have emails.
Well, we're only allocated a certain number anyway, right, Catherine?
Yes, but you can purchase more.
Yeah, it's $50 a year, I think.
We've had it now
Through the
for,
town.
I think it's been 2 years. Because prior to that, we didn't have email addresses for the officers.
Yep.
There was only one for myself, the sergeant, and all the other full-time officers and the part-timers shared one email address.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with everybody having a Gmail account. I have an issue for a nonprofit paying $2,600 for Gmail.
Well, if it's something that we could cut out and get it for free, I'd be all for it.
I'm sure others would appreciate this as well. I'd like that to be looked into.
Okay.
So Catherine, do we not have town-sanctioned email accounts?
We do,
Like
yeah.
we do for the councils?
We
Are there
do.
not enough for the police department to have each officer to have their own?
They wanted to have their own operation and setup, so they went off and set up the Gmail accounts. They could have the Gov office if they wanted to, that's fine. It's not an
Okay,
issue.
all right, so
Not to
consider.
date.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have had it for 2 years, and, I mean, we haven't paid a penny as far as I know.
Yeah.
So do they give you a period of time you don't have to pay then?
Not really sure, but the idea was to just get emails for everybody. Because like I said, everybody was operating with one email address, which was just, nothing
Right.
See,
way to do it.
I'm like Amanda, I don't understand why we're gonna pay for it, because normally towns and nonprofits don't pay for the Gmail.
Sounds like you haven't paid for it, so
They haven't.
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason we haven't.
just zero it out and
Yeah.
call it a day.
We've been working with, what's the guy's name?
They'll
Brian.
save you $2,600.
Yeah, I say we cut
Yeah,
the
let's-
Gmail fund if we're not paying for it.
I
It was
don't-
already budgeted in last year's budget, right?
I don't think it was.
No, it wasn't.
We didn't
No, it
pay
wasn't?
for it.
Nope.
We didn't pay for anything.
And they haven't sent you a bill.
No, they haven't.
You haven't had to put in a credit card or anything.
Gmail.
No, I believe we put this in here because we were like, well, they're gonna bill us at some point, so we should probably put it in the budget.
Why don't we check a
So
little
maybe
further? I
they-
don't think you have to pay for it.
Okay.
So, to Amanda's point, we're a nonprofit, so.
If-
municipal,
Yeah.
municipal.
So we can probably take that out then.
What?
I'll circle back with you about that.
What line item we on?
Thank you.
2505 under contractual, we're gonna remove $26.
Yeah.
2640.
So 2510
So that's 27,816.
is 1,500.
What? You have it under computer software?
I'm sorry, I was moving on to the next one.
2510, you mean?
2510, yeah.
Weren't we down at 2505? That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, then we just say we're gonna take,
Take the
that,
26 out.
So,
what, 20?
Yeah, we gotta check the Gmail and see if we can take it
so
out.
what does line item 2505 become now? If we're taking the 2,500 out?
27,816.
I had a question, the communications budget you mentioned earlier was 23,276. But looking at the 2021 budget, it was listed at 22,570 was the entire communications budget. And that included general supplies, non-vehicle maintenance equipment, contractual, and telephone. So I'm wondering, how much, was there any of that that was duplicated in the regular police budget?
I don't think so, because they were separate this year.
It's just carried over.
So did these items come over in one lump sum, because this 23,276 is actually more than the 22,570 that was in the budget approved last year?
Where are you seeing 22,570? Excuse me, I'm not following you there.
22,570, I'm reading it off this, I have my 2021 budget with me for the communications, and that was the full amount that was approved.
Communications, okay.
Hmm.
Okay, that's,
Where is communication in number 4, Catherine?
Yes, I'm pulling that out now.
Oh, I think I got it.
I just didn't make a copy for the packet because we weren't going to.
Page 25.
well, if you're looking at 2505,
Yeah.
okay, all right, we added communication, okay, never mind. Never mind.
Right, that's the number that was that Mike gave earlier though is actually more than what was in the budget for last year.
But did you say that 22,000 some change was 2021's budget?
This is this year's budget.
Oh, I thought you just said 2021's budget.
This is this year's 2021. So this is this year's budget.
Right, it's not gonna be that number anyway, it's gonna be what they're proposing for 2022. So it's not gonna be the 22 and some
So-
change.
Well, I'm trying to figure out why it's more. That's what my question is why it's more than.
So the increase from the communication from 22,000 for last year to the 23,000 and some change, so you were asking about the $1,000 plus or
Yeah.
minus difference?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
asking why there's a difference in there.
So the communications budget in 2021 was approved for 22,570.
Okay.
So she's asking, why did that come over as exactly that?
Which of these line items?
So obviously, it was
Something-
increased by
Something got changed.
$1,000 plus or minus, and that amount was brought into this line item. So we're just asking, we're trying to find out what in the communications line, what that $1,000 difference was.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
I have a question along those lines. With the contractual though, that's not all communication, right? Some of the
I'm sure
communication
not.
went into supplies, some of it went into equipment,
Yeah.
some of it's not all in this line.
Well, that's what I'm
No, it
wondering.
isn't.
Why the full amount is being applied to the contractual line when there's bits and pieces of it scattered throughout the budget in other places. But we didn't see increases in, say, general supplies, when there's the general supply line here in the communications budget in 2021, there's $1,700 in there.
I guess I don't see where you're seeing the full budget was brought over from communication, because what I'm seeing is
Yeah, it wasn't.
$3,500 and $7,739 from communications brought over in this line item.
And then 2850.
The rest of it is
went into
stuff that's already
equipment.
there.
So the contractual for the police department in 2021 was $4,500. And that included, this is the other question I had, the whole budget for contractual last year was $4,500.
What are you looking at? Because I see it as 73.
I'm looking at the
Yeah,
approved
73.70.
2021.
Right, I'm looking at it under tab
budget.
4, which is the carryover that she gave us for 2021.
What page is that?
That is page 8 in tab 4.
so you've got the same total, 22,570. Okay, now in the complete police budget, if you look at contractual 2505, it was only $4,500 last year. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you look
It
in
wasn't
the section,
7370?
hold on a minute. If you look at the section 3 page where it lists out each of the items, that $4,500 includes fire extinguishers, reference books, radar, added the Dirigo safety, so the DMS power system is in there, and other contractual costs. And then when you look at the line item for this year, Dirigo safety is $3,600. And then you have new radars added that were, was it 9636, Mike? For the 3
for
new
what?
radars?
9637 for 3 radars.
37.
Yeah.
And then you have fire extinguishers for 390 and reference books for 450.
Yeah.
So,
I have IMC software also for 7739.
well, the software should be incorporated in the communications number that came over. No?
Well, I had it as being 7370 last year.
Right,
For the
that's the
IMC
number from the
software.
communications.
Yeah, and that was from communications. And then the maintenance fees for the IMC were 3,500.
Right. So it's just not adding up for me. It
Okay.
was 4,500 last year and it already included the DMS. And this year, now the DMS alone is $3,600.
So some of that though comes from that, in the
Actually,
police budget, we have that $13,000 for 2005. Some of that was encumbered into 2505 because they moved the radar.
also the DMS went away because we got that for free from MMA.
But you're saying that it's costing you $3,675.
That's for the procedural review help that we're getting, not for the power DMS.
So it should just be Dirigo safety and it should not be power DMS listed
Correct,
under
yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
Originally, we budgeted for the DMS, then we found out that through MMA, we could get a different version of Power DMS for free.
Yeah.
I think it was totally free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should take the wording power DMS out of contractual 2505?
Yeah, just leave it as Dirigo.
Okay.
And it looks like, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, in the communications budget for last year, 20-10, we had $3,000 that it mostly came over. So that's part of that budget that came over. But some of it's not a lot, it's $150 missing.
We also had some in 1510 that came over.
Under non-vehicle.
There was also some in 1005, 3000 that came over.
So part of that, so that still doesn't answer my question, how part of this budget, communications, is scattered amongst the rest of the budget.
It is.
But the full amount is being added to this bottom line here, as though those other parts and pieces are not already accounted for in the budget somewhere. You see what I mean?
I don't see why you're saying that though, Heather.
Because you told me it went up to the 27,776 because we put the communication stuff in there. And then it
Some
was
of it, yeah.
23,276 of communications was the difference. Because it was
That
only
wasn't the whole
$4,500
difference.
last year.
Wasn't the whole difference. That was one of the differences. I have a new IMC software maintenance fees. Went to 3,500 and those were 0 last year.
don't we have contractual items in there built into the communications already? 7370?
That would have been in the communications this year. It was a new charge for changes that we made.
So what you're saying is if we hadn't encumbered communications into the police department, that additional amount would have been put on the communications budget?
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, it's not encumbered, we just included, I guess. Encumbered would mean that we held aside money from this year for next year for it.
Encompassed.
Encompass is a better word.
We would have put it in there.
We're gonna get our thesaurus now.
So yeah, our fire extinguishers went up in cost from 130 to 390. And reference books went up from 110 to 450. And the reason for that is that's mostly the statute guides that each officer holds. We have to get all new ones. Well, we will have to get all new ones.
You said because of statute changes?
Yeah. It's been, I think, three or 4 years since we've got statute books.
Was there a change in the radar fees, Mike?
Yes, so the 3 radars are new for next year, 9,637.
So that, what did the radar cost us last year?
0. We didn't get radars last year.
The last ones we've got have been donated by other departments.
Oh, so we've been getting them for nothing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a huge part of the increase right there, between the IMC stuff and the radars. That's 20 grand.
9 grand just for
Yeah,
radar.
let's circle back to that, yeah. All right, I think I was on 2510, unless anybody has more questions.
What's our final number on 2505, I guess?
2505.
We got 3 to choose from.
I know.
If we remove the Gmail cost, it was 27,816.
That's from the original 30,416, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
27,816.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and then 25-10 is 1,500. And that was no change from this year. 2530 is 200, no change from this year. Nothing for miscellaneous. And then 6636, I had 62,400, which was no change from this year.
That one changed because of stuff that Catherine had.
Yeah, so that should be reflected up top in the personnel.
Right, yeah. But that's the one that comes out in the wash, because that's SAD 53 pays that, because that's the 10 months
Yeah.
of Mike's time at the school board.
Can we go back up to 2530? Advertising is still at $200.
Yep.
Do you need more of that because you have positions to continue advertising for?
Yeah, probably.
Must be doing most of that.
Is there a fee for those websites that you use, there, Pete?
Yeah, but it's minimal, but I didn't hear what your question was, Heather, I'm sorry.
Whether we needed to increase the advertising dollars because there's still additional positions to continue advertising for.
I mean, yeah, but we've been pretty successful. I think we're using the police.com, how it's called?
Policeapp.com.
Yeah.
So that's free to the
nationwide.
posters, and the people that apply pay a fee. So we've been using that.
Maine Criminal Justice Academy website, which just is a pointer system now to the town,
Yeah.
which is where most people go.
And this other advertising is pretty much just Rolling Thunder, that kind of thing. I think we've been posting the patrol jobs there.
We've been hitting we've been hitting the MCJA website and that national one.
Yeah.
200 is probably good then?
Everything else was outrageous.
Doing anything, I don't think it costs
I
money.
don't think it needs to cost.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, dare we ask for a new bottom line? Anybody? I've already professed my non-accounting skills. I was building up to this moment apparently. Amanda.
Look.
Look at her go. I think we got the bottom line number. We should be good. We've gone over everything.
So one of the other reasons why my budget was a lot less is I did my personnel differently, but my personnel was 30,000 over this year. Some of that was the raises that we gave everybody. I actually calculated 40 hours per week, 52 weeks by the actual rates people were getting. I also put in the 20,000 that Pete was supposed to get for in the negotiations with the Labor Relations Committee that we were told he should have.
Is that in the budget here?
It's in my budget. I don't know if it's in yours.
It is not in our budget.
No, it's not.
Our line item 01-05 is 508,105. 508,105.
Which is in accordance with the contract and the raises that the staff are getting.
And this
So
includes-
my new total with everything minus what we're looking at for this 1-05 thing is 993,032.
993,032.
Yep.
But it's,
That has the $4,000 extra that we were missing for the overtime. It subtracts the 5,838 from the 20-05 that was a miscommunication. It subtracts the 15,000 and changes 2505 from 27,776 to 27,816. So those are the changes in that new calculation.
I concur.
and that takes into account all the different workers' comp and health insurance.
That's everything that Catherine put in
All
for
that
those
happy stuff.
line items that
Right,
we
okay.
don't control.
Okay.
Did you include the raise that she's talking about for me there?
That's not part of this budget.
No. Well, it says the chief got $77,000.
No, but
76,962.
but in the labor negotiations meetings, it was recommended that I get a $20,000 a year raise.
No, it was not.
No, it was not.
It's right here in
It was in
writing.
all the calculations.
It was in all the calculations.
It was not in all the calculations.
It's right here.
I think that, and we did many spreadsheets, I think the mayor can explain this, or I can, or Tim can.
It says the police chief makes less money than regular officers.
So Pete, I'm going to stop you right there because you are holding a confidential document that was generated as part of our labor negotiations committee meetings.
This
And those
isn't-
are confidential.
This
and they
isn't my
cannot be-
packet of stuff that I got from the town manager for this meeting.
No, it
No,
isn't.
that was in our
No.
labor negotiations committee meeting, and we are not going to be discussing confidential documents.
Okay, well then, let's not talk about that. Let's
It will
just talk.
compromise the town's position when it comes time to be negotiating again.
Okay, well, how do I talk about my salary? We talked about this a couple of years ago.
Right, if you want a pay raise, it goes into the additionals, like you did the last 2 times you wanted pay raises. That's how you did it, it went into the additionals.
Well, this was not recommended by me. This was recommended by the town
It's
manager.
It
not
was
something we're
not.
going to discuss tonight, because that's a confidential document, it should not be brought out into a public meeting.
Well, that's what we had added into the budget also.
All right, so that we can clarify this situation here, I met with Pete on Monday, and we went through the budget, and he brought up that I had recommended a $20,000 raise for him. Now, the Labor Negotiations Committee requested that I, as a support staff, run all the figures on all the costs of the proposals that the police chief made for recruitment in terms of salary increases and benefits, and some of those were very high. There were many spreadsheets that we went through. Some of the spreadsheets would have a raise for the police chief if the officers were going to make as much money as what was proposed, but that is not what took place and what was not approved, and so not in the budget.
That's what we put into our budget. That's why, in the packet I got is what I'm looking at here. I didn't know that. I thought that was part of this meeting
All right,
packet.
the budget that you got was the budget that everyone else got. There was no other packet.
Everything I've got in my hands came in that packet.
The items that you have in your hand were from the budget negotiation sessions, from the 3 sessions that you went to, but they were
And they were in the packet that I got on my manila folder from you. But we had included that into our budget, is what I'm saying.
It's not included in the budget before us, Pete, right now.
Yeah,
No,
we didn't approve the amount of monies that you had suggested and all the benefits for officer recruitment. If we did, it would have affected your rate, because of course you can't make less than the officers.
So what do you recommend, that I submit a separate? Additional.
So
Okay.
the last time you asked for a pay raise, you submitted an additional request to the budget,
Okay.
which is the proper way to do that.
Okay. Well, we had that, like Mike brought it up, and that was, you asked us why our budget was over. That's one of the things that we had added in there.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to explain to you,
It's
where
not-
that came from.
It's not the appropriate spot to put it, is what I'm trying to explain.
Okay,
And so
so
the
I'll-
numbers before us, for personnel, are the contractual agreements that we have with the union officers, and then your pay is based on last year's salary as well as the cost of living that all employees are getting.
All
So
right.
that's how much your pay is changing.
I'll
this
put
year,
in
and
an
that's what
additional
this is.
before the next meeting then. Is that what you're saying I'm supposed to do?
Well, the time for additionals is already passed. I don't remember, was it mid-September?
When all the budget items were submitted, everything was submitted by the same deadline, and everybody submitted their items on time.
So, I mean, you can try and submit one, but it's up to the council whether they want to consider it or not.
And then when do I talk about other benefits, my benefits, besides salary? Like
Well, your
vacation,
benefits
things
would-
like that.
Your benefits as an employee and not a union member would follow the rest of the personnel regulations that the town, all the employees have to follow. As far as vacation accrued and time off and sick time and all those kinds of things, it would follow the regular personnel policies and employment policies of the town that all the employees would be party to.
Well, so, with my vacation, I'm not allowed to bring this up at the council meeting?
Well, if we change the vacation policy, then it would be changed for all employees. It wouldn't be changed just for you. It would be a change for the entire town's vacation policy.
So I have officers that have more vacation than I do. I mean, I came in here and started at 0.
Because that's what the personnel policy applied to all of our town employees. That was the policy in place. The officers are covered under their union agreement, which is different than town employees. They have a separate agreement with the town. I don't know what to tell you other than that. I mean, if we change the vacation policy, we have to change the vacation policy for the entire all of the employees for the town. And that would be something that the council could look at, but that's what would have to happen. We couldn't say, Pete gets this much vacation, and Mike doesn't get as much vacation.
Well, I think I ought to get at least as much as my sergeant.
I don't know what else to tell you. If we change your vacation, then we have to change everybody's vacation.
Well, this issue happened to me too. The officers, some of the individuals that had been here a long time got more vacation than I did coming in as a new person. That happens.
It's union versus non-union. I mean,
And that's a
it's-
different issue.
Correct.
too.
Yeah, you're just kind of,
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, that's why they're in the union.
that's why they're in the union, that's
They
right.
can negotiate that stuff.
Unfortunately, that's the position that we're in. I mean, the council can vote to look at the entire vacation packages offered to employees, but it would cover all the employees and not just yourself.
I'll bring it up
So
again at another meeting.
that would be the the answer's not going to change unless the town council voted to change the
Change
vacation
the
policy.
policy. Yeah.
So, which would have a huge impact on the budget overall.
I think this is an important discussion to
Jason?
have, but probably not the budget.
Jason?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I guess, I can make it.
Okay.
I do have questions as well, but I have a lot of homework tonight, and I'd love to get through this budget.
I do too. I gotta get up at 4 a.m.
So what about back to the 3,000 for the cadet program?
That's the thing I understand, right?
Yeah, it's
My
within the number that I
Council is keeping that in
It's in
there.
there.
Okay.
And there was no further adjustments made, although Amanda offered to take it out of the overtime. So that's where we're at on that.
Well, we've already decreased this budget
But
I think
yeah.
it's fine.
a lot
They
of
don't
money,
use it, they
so
don't
I
use
think
it.
we're okay.
I mean, as far as the overtime goes.
We've gone from over $1 million to 993, so.
Well, 15 of it just moved to a different spot. in the
Right,
budget.
it's in a
It's not
different budget.
gone.
So 993,032 is what you had for the bottom line.
That's what I
Right now.
have, yes.
Okay. All right.
Michael, could I get a copy of your spreadsheet and then I'll put all your little figures into the budget here?
Yep,
That'll make it easier next year.
sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Were there any other items on here that we needed to follow up on?
This
The
specific
Gmail, we
budget?
just took that right out. We were gonna follow up and find out about that, but we just took it right out.
The
right?
Gmail?
Yeah, the Gmail.
I'll follow up on it with Brian.
I don't think you
Brian.
have to pay for it.
That was, well, we reached out to him and, because we hadn't got a bill and we were worried, or I was worried about it, we both worried about it, about getting socked with a bill. Because, I mean, maybe it is free, but
Yeah.
we were told with the business account, we had to pay for it.
Bottom line is, if that is at cost and there's no budget for it, the town manager has mentioned that there are emails available to the
That are
town
cheaper.
site.
Error, AOL.
So they don't have to go without
No,
cap,
it's
one way or
not
the
all-
other.
it's
Right, right, yeah. What, I don't know what the council, was it Pittsfield, at Pittsfield.org?
Yeah,
Is
it's through Gov office.
Yeah.
Mike, we'd have to pay for it, but it'd be a lot less than that. A
Yeah.
lot less.
Oh, so it does need, so it is at cost?
Yeah, there is cost, but it's a lot
Yeah.
less than that.
50 per,
Okay.
$50 a year per.
So how many accounts would you need for 6, 7,
12.
12 for the
Well,
TV?
just
No,
figure
13,
high,
14.
just figure 8 plus 7, I mean,
$750.
if everyone was
Yeah, it's
there.
a
Yeah,
$100,000.
so that's
Less than
15.
1,000.
The admin,
I had a question.
And then-
Yeah,
can we
a
go
lot
back
less
to-
than what Gmail would
Yeah.
count, yeah, okay.
Okay,
all
can we
right.
go back to personnel services? I had a question about the admin assistant for police chief. Mike is leaving us, and I'm wondering if that would be adjusted based on somebody coming in without as much experience? Because that's Mike's pay rate, and he's been with the town for several years.
That's what we advertised it at.
Not as a range.
No, 23.
I'm sorry?
And that's actually less.
Huh?
23 is less.
Yeah, we advertised it at
Yeah.
23 though.
Yeah.
So that was that a range?
No, it was brought down to the next lower dollar figure.
So,
So this, let me see what she has.
50,160.24.
Yeah, it's gonna be less than that, at $23 per hour.
It's 47,840.
Oh, okay.
I added that up.
So that would have been Mike's on the, when we
Right.
put the budget together.
Yeah.
So that might have some adjustment into it based on who's hired. And then the other question I had is, I was counting up, so last year we had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 officers, and then the ACO patrol, but we dropped that. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 officers plus the ACO. Did we pick up an extra officer somewhere, an officer position somewhere?
School resource officer.
Well, the SRO was included last time too.
We went from 6 to 1, and then not counting the 2 additional.
Region APO.
What?
What's APO?
ACO.
ACO.
We had, so last year we had funded that ACO/patrol position. It was removed from the budget this year because we just couldn't find anybody to hire for that position.
But you were still keeping the patrol officer.
Yeah, we were still
position.
keeping it as a full-time
We
patrol
were
officer.
keeping it as a patrol
Just
officer.
patrol, so it's the
Yeah.
7 that we
Well,
talked
yeah, but we
about.
didn't get anything from that.
Okay, that's what was
Didn't we
confusing.
approve an
But Heather, we also had,
Yeah, that's
in your,
separate.
in
But
the
yeah,
other
at the
negotiation
committee
meetings,
it
we
did.
had given that up to offset the raises.
Right, that's why I wasn't sure why there was still an extra officer in there. That position had been given up to help with the raises.
We gave that up because of the bonuses and everything.
But that was just for this year though, right? I thought that's because we
bonus
couldn't
is-
hire anybody for this year, that was encumbered.
The bonuses were for one more officer for, well, it was gonna be for a total of 3, but we hired, or 4.
4.
Right, 4, right. But we've hired a reserve officer. And then if we hire the 2 additional officers for next year, are you with me? So we're at 7. We're down 1. We're down 1. Right now, we're at 6. And we should have 7. And then not counting the additional requests for next year.
So right now it's 7 officers plus the SRO.
No, it's 6 plus 1.
Well, I'm counting you in there. 1,
Okay,
2,
so that
3,
counts me,
5,
correct.
6, 7 officers and the SRO, so it'd be 8 altogether.
No. No, it's
That's what we're
7.
budgeted.
It's 7. It's 7 including me and the SRO. Right? And then, like I've said, that didn't include the request for 22.
So there's 7 officer positions in our budget plus the SRO. So that's a total of 8 officers. So is it only supposed to be 7 officers?
No, it's 7 total. That included, we were 6, that included me. And then we got Mike in August. That put us up to 7.
No, she's talking for the budgeted amount, Pete.
Yeah, she talked about here.
Oh, okay.
You have,
So we have 8 budgeted if you include the SRO and you.
Including the SRO, there's 8 full-time officers in the budget right now.
Correct.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got 7 and we've got 1 to fill.
you're missing 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't scare me there.
I was getting you mixed up.
I got a question.
No, it's
Background.
gonna be
I'm still
additional-
looking at
It's gonna
overtime.
be a separate meeting for that.
Okay. Now, the 17,600 is year-to-date what we spent on overtime, right?
Yeah.
And we lost 3 officers in May, which induced all the overtime for the other people to cover, right?
Well, not a lot. I mean, some. I've been working patrol full-time. That's a shift that that would be normally filled with overtime.
And tons of overtime on top of that.
I mean, I've got about, I don't know, over 600 hours of overtime.
That isn't reflected in that dollar figure.
I'm just looking at it, figuring that even with the cadets and going to the academy and all that, that this year here would be about as drastic as you'd get. But according to what you're proposing, next year's gonna be worse.
Yeah. Because next year, it's gonna be directly in as overtime. This year, all the overtime he put in was his salary, so he doesn't get it.
Right. So he's not gonna do no overtime next year. That's what you're telling us.
Well, you got a contract.
Yeah.
Probably do some here and there.
I don't know.
Not like not 600 hours worth.
I don't know if my job description really covers everything that I've been doing. That's another, I guess, subject for a different meeting, or to be addressed in a different way by different subject.
So the contract reads that when an officer's at the academy, the other officers have to be offered the overtime first. Then if nobody wants it, then it goes to the reserves. And if nobody wants it, a full-timer can be made to take it, but Pete doesn't do that. Pete covers it. So he
I've
doesn't
never
try.
forced one person since I worked here.
Yeah.
I've worked it myself.
But that's why the overtime line item is so much lower than what you would normally expect at November of
Right.
a normal year.
Because even before this, I worked a lot more patrol, I can tell you, than most chiefs.
Yeah.
And this, had no compensation.
See, I'm just looking at this, if a regular citizen on the street looked at all this stuff, they're figuring probably this is our worst year. Again, they would wonder why it's jumping so much next year. Plus, the normal citizen's gonna look at the police budget has jumped up almost, let's say, 175,000 in 1 year. So they're gonna say, what are we getting for jumping the budget 175,000?
Wow.
And we gotta be able to answer that question with a straight face.
No, I understand.
And justify it.
You work for the people.
Yeah. And that's what they can look at. Plus, we lump this all together and throw it out as the tax budget. There's gonna be a lot of people probably squawking.
I understand that, but I think most people, if you had a vote, they'd want public safety, and, you know, we talked about that at the last meeting.
We're not debating that, but it's some place in time
No,
you're gonna have to look at.
no, I
where can you
understand.
squeeze and trim something, because people don't want to keep paying.
I
My
understand.
answer to that would be, this year's been unique in the fact that we lost 3 people in March. So 2 people and Pete were covering what 5 were doing beforehand.
Right.
And all of his overtime and all of his administrative duties have been put to the side. So he's been doing patrol, both on regular time and overtime. So you've been saving tons of salary this year. Just the 3 people that left until we backfilled them, all that was savings. So,
Catherine, that's another thing we can roll over, right? We did it last year, but
Pardon?
The personnel that didn't get expended this year because we didn't hire all of the positions, we can roll that over to next year as well, correct?
Only if it's for a specific position that didn't get hired.
Well,
So
there's
if it's a
specific officer
specific-
positions that we knew we were going to hire for, so those would roll over.
If there's a specific position we didn't hire for, we can. So we can assess all this, like, after the end of this month. Yes.
Because that'll end up lowering the bill because we had 3 positions we knew we were going to hire for because we lost those positions.
But we've hired everybody except for 1 position, so we might be able to.
But we had a huge gap
Oh,
of
yeah.
money that didn't get spent that could be.
Oh, this is true. There
Yes,
was a
okay.
big gap.
Well, some of those funds were allocated to the $60,000 fine.
Oh, no, I know that, but after that part,
Right.
we have money that can go over.
We'd have to wait till the end of November when we reconcile everything, and then we'll see what we have left.
So just to Brent's point, to put some things in perspective here, the police department proposed budget in 2017 was $467,000. In 2018, it was 478. 2019, it was 534. 2020, it was 717,000. 2021, it was 860. And today, we're at $993,000 for the police department. So, I mean, we need to keep that in mind. There's, the town has a lot of needs. Safety is one of our needs. It's not the only need. And that's something that we need to keep in mind.
So Heather, the other councilors may not know that the Finance Committee is recommending the additional 2 officers, which is $184,000 that would get added to the police budget when you get to your additionals.
So that's the additionals at the end. I missed that. That was the meeting I was in Ireland for, so I missed that one. But in your additional request, there's 2 additional, that's one of the additional requests from the police department, is 2 additional full-time officers. $185,000. And that's to have 2 officers on shift, which is something that Chief has spoken to several times about having to improve officer safety by having that additional shift work available. So that, you're talking about adding another $185,000 if the council approves
But
that.
additionals are later, right? That's not.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just saying to kind of look big picture at what the police department budget is gonna look like in that end.
I think we're gonna add to that big picture too.
With that, then that's,
Yeah.
puts it back up over $1 million too.
I think if we're looking at that big picture too, I think something else we need to keep in mind is that in 2017, minimum wage was $9 an hour, and in 2022, minimum wage is $12.75. So we can't, it's not apples to apples the same way, and workers' comp has increased, insurance has increased, all of that's part of that budget. And so if we're looking at it in that sense, we do have to keep in mind that costs have increased for everybody.
Of course it has. It's increased for all the budgets across that. We're
Yes.
talking about labor, exponentially so in the police department. And part of it is because of the highly skilled labor that is necessary for the job. But that's just, perspective, looking back. That's where we were, and this is where we are, and this is where we might be going. If the council's addressing all of the additionals.
But can I just say something? When you just quoted your last figure where the budget, which is what Mike's figure was, one of the figures was my increase in pay, and
That's not included in anything that I,
okay, but what I meant though, Heather, is in our budget, we were just going off what was brought up at those meetings. That's why it was up 20,000, but I just want to say that, like what Brent was just talking about, as far as the overtime budget being way down, well, probably one of the biggest factors that it's down is because of all the hours I've worked. And all I'm saying to all of you is, you know what, I worked my butt off here, and it was a recommendation. I didn't bring it up, and I think it's a good recommendation. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of my officers make more than I do. And I've been working 60, 70 hours a week some weeks, and I'm not asking for everything, and I'm willing to compromise. That was a figure that was brought up. Mike and I were there, and I'm willing to compromise on it, but I think it's only fair to take care of me for my pay and my vacation. And I know I haven't worked here for 25 or 50 years, but I came in here with 40 years of experience. And I think any other place, we've talked about it at other meetings, you wouldn't come into most places like that. You'd start at 4 or 5 weeks vacation. So I'll bring it up at a different body, but I'm just being totally blunt to you and the people in the town. And I think it's only fair. If you look at the hours that I'm working compared to what my hourly pay rate is, you know, we went through this before a couple of years ago, and if you had your calculator out right now, I'm not making that much money. And so I am going to put in a proposal, an addition, is that what you call it?
Additional.
An additional, and I hope you'll support it for next year. I hope all of you will, because it's only fair. And my officers, they deserve to be safe. And my number one concern is their well-being, 100%. We've had 7 or 8 officers hurt this year, in the past year, they've been out of work, and it's I hope you'll all support the additional officers. I know it costs money. The people in town know it costs money, and I know that you can't have everything, Heather. I understand that, and I've compromised. I mean, I asked for 3 officers, and I know that Amanda had asked if we could compromise this year, and I said yes, but we really do need to have 2 officers on a shift as much as possible. We're isolated over here. It's not like we're sitting in Fairfield and we've got neighboring communities right around us. We're isolated over here, and the first several minutes are critical. You can't wait for someone to get out of bed or travel 10 or 15 minutes. So I think it's important, and I think it would be money, but it's well deserved. I guess that's enough said.
Thank you. So I think we're going to mark this as reviewed. Look at some final figures, and then we'll have our next council meeting on Tuesday. Thank you, everyone.
That's all of it.
Looks like you're done.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to mess it up.